Okay, so you just heard the two-step surf theme. You may have noticed some names in that I've threw in there. One is Brigitte. The AI read it as Bridget, so we're going to go with that.
Okay.
And there was also Poussard's name was in there. And oh boy, is this episode about him tonight. Welcome to Gish Gallop Girl, the show where we skewer alt-right, media queen, mama bigot, theocratic fascist, Candace Owens.
I think you got everything in there, yeah.
I think I did, yeah. I am Thomas Anderson, and with me is...
Matthew Anderson.
As always. So we are set up, and... do you have anything you want to say before we start this?
Nothing I can really think of except I did go to the fair. That was nice. Yeah.
The Minnesota State Fair.
Yes. Apparently, I had just missed Walt's wife though. She was there the day before I went.
The Governor Walz was actually he was there. Apparently, he had the Secret Service that was with him. Well, because he gets Secret Service protection. Now.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had the Secret Service that was with him dressed in flannel and shit. Some people caught some photos of that and they posted up to the Minnesota Reddit. What was the other thing? He was also, there's footage of him people took where he was at one of I think he was at a sandwich booth or something.
Yeah.
And he was calling out orders and passing out orders to people. Yeah. I mean, everyone knew who he was. It was no secret, but yeah.
There's also a video of him and his daughter. They had gone together. Mm-hmm. And apparently what they do every year is they, pick two rides that they'll do.
Yeah.
He always picks something old, and then his daughter, she's in charge of picking something new.
Yeah.
Well, she got him on the slingshot. So, yeah.
Oh, boy.
That was funny to watch.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into this then.
Yep.
So, welcome to episode 19 of the Gish Gallop Girl podcast. We're going to be starting this one off with episode 52. France arrests Pavel Durov. There will be no exploration of Blackout this week, as I lost a day due to just needing some time off. I spent the night I would have spent engaging with Blackout to just play some Sniper Elite 4, because even in my time off I'm working on eliminating fascists in a digital sense. Anyway, this episode, and that one takes place in Italy, so it's kind of like a 2-for-1.
Yeah.
Anyway, this episode starts with Candace's Monday episode. Episode 52. Candace can't seem to leave France alone with this one.
All right, guys, happy Monday. Actually, it's been kind of a weekend of me shouting over the internet if you follow me on Twitter, or X rather, because something extremely important happened over the weekend that every single person in the world should be speaking about. And that is that Pavel Durov, the founder of the messaging app Telegram, has been arrested in France, ostensibly for not allowing the government to build a backdoor into his social media app, really allowing them to build a backdoor into our lives. Plus, and somehow kind of relatedly, Justin Bieber just had a child, and I am convinced that he is himself trying to exit Hollywood, but the gang that runs Hollywood, I know I'm not supposed to say that, there's a gang, can't imply that, are not allowing him to. I noticed some very interesting hit pieces about him. We're going to talk about that. And in sports, Brittany Mahomes has an attitude. She liked a Trump post, and people are angry at her, and she doesn't care, and I am here for that. All of that is what is coming up on Candid.
Yeah, so France might have a valid case here on Pavel Durov, and we'll get into that first with...
All right, so I'm going to slow this down in case you're like me and you're not on all of the apps. Telegram is actually one app that I am not on, but let me tell you something about it. It is huge. It is one of the world...
For the record, she's also not on Truth Social, but let's let her keep going.
World's biggest social media and messaging platforms. It has 950 million active users monthly. I'll tell you a little bit about it because it's important to understand the backstory here. It was founded in 2013 by a Russian man named Pavel Durov. Pavel Durov is something of, I guess I would refer to him as a technological renegade. He really believes in free speech. Imagine that. So initially, his backstory is that he was running this wildly popular social media app in Russia, where he's from. And that app was called V Kontakte, forgive my really poor Russian there, until the government then started putting pressure on him, the Russian government. They were like, listen, we don't like all of these opposition communities that are running. We want you to squash them on our behalf. We don't want anybody running opposed to the Russian state in their ideas. So guess what Pavel Durov decided to do? He said, goodbye, Russia.
Yeah, so anyone want to guess who was in power in Russia when Pavel Durov left in 2014, a year which Candace chooses to omit from this tale?
Good old Putin.
Yeah, good old Vladimir Putin. Yeah.
I always forget that his first name's Vladimir.
I never will. What's funny, though, is that Zelensky's first name is like very similar. It like reads as Vladimir.
Vladimir. Yeah, that's one of those like one or two letters off.
Yeah, I think it's like 4 letters off. Yeah, like I think it might be like 2 to 4 letters off. Yeah. I mean, technically, we're saying that as like an English word. I don't know what the Cyrillic looks like.
The Cyrillic probably looks just
similar.
Yeah. As somebody who's currently
there's probably like a
studying
couple
that.
of strokes off.
Yeah.
It's like the difference in Chinese names. Like there will be like some dots missing above one, and it just changes an entire fucking word.
Yeah. Or got Germany in their umlauts.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, those European countries in their umlauts.
Yeah. So, well, if you guessed Putin, good job. Pavel Durov was pressured to use his platform, known more widely these days as VK, to be used as a platform for spying on supposed enemies of the Kremlin. It has continued to be popular even under state control, but he is not part of the service.
Keep this app, I'll build a new one because I believe in free speech. And he created Telegram. It was only born for 1 year, and then he was out of Russia, took that new app with him. So you're probably thinking, where'd he go? Candace, he must have come to America. It's so obvious America has free speech, right? So they tell us we have free speech. We are the land of the free. If you are escaping the oppression of Russia, then of course you would want to come to America and maybe join Silicon Valley and go to lunches with Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg, everyone else who really believes in this idea of freedom and free speech. Except, he did come to America. He came to America a few times, and he kind of got a different experience. I'm going to allow you to listen to him tell Tucker Carlson exactly what happened when he came to America. Take a listen.
There's this second part, which was probably more alarming there in the U.S. We got too much attention from the FBI, the security agencies, wherever we came to the U.S. So to give you an example, last time I was in the U.S., I brought an engineer that is working for Telegram, and there was an attempt to secretly hire my engineer behind my back by cybersecurity officers or agents, whatever they are called.
The U.S. government tried to hire your engineer?
That's my understanding. That's what he told me.
To write code for them or to break into Telegram?
They were curious to learn which open source libraries are integrated to the Telegram's app, on the client side, and they were trying to persuade him to use certain open source tools that he would then integrate into the Telegram's code that, in my understanding, would serve as backdoors.
Would allow the U.S. government to spy on people who use Telegram?
The U.S. government, or maybe any other government, because a backdoor is a backdoor regardless of who is using it.
That's right.
So just to reiterate there, he came over to America, the land of the free, had some amazing technology, was protecting users' privacy, and the state approached one of his engineers and were like, hey, what if you did a deal with us? What if you worked for us? What if you just created sort of a backdoor so that we could spy on, and I love that he points out that maybe more than America, because I think we're all comprehending that we are not that free, and there is, in fact, a global elite. I believe the governments are working with one another in the West. It is just a globalized governance, so to speak, and they wanted access to Telegram. for a lot of reasons. So guess what Pavel did? He decided, actually, I'm going to run this company from Dubai, which is so interesting because if you just think of our American depictions of the Middle East, we think of it as so oppressed, no freedom. Why would anybody want to actually live there? And yet here you have this tech renegade, and he ups and he moves to Dubai, and he decides to run his company from the UAE because he imagines that to be one of the only places where there might be any protection for him to simply allow users to communicate and message one another without having the government breathing over their necks.
Yeah, about that. It sounds good on paper to the right kind of person, but that's not the reasons he actually gave, and not the history that bears out the reasons he gave, to move to Dubai instead of the United States. First, I find it hard to believe that Pavel Durov was this idealistic foreigner, with his level of wealth and knowledge at the time, coming to America with a hope and a dream that the American intelligence agencies wouldn't approach him with similar goals to the Russians. That seems unlikely. They may have scared him or not offered him the deal he wanted, who can say? But Pavel Durov has said that the reason he chose the UAE/Dubai is because the bureaucratic hurdles to do business in San Francisco, London, Berlin, Singapore, etc. were all very difficult. He also has been upfront previously about finding Dubai attractive because of the low to zero corporate tax structure. It's easier to find top talent willing to work for cheap, and new infrastructure is pretty nice. He didn't mention freedom of information or privacy concerns in his many previous public talks, and I would think, being ensconced in Dubai as a citizen, no less, he could have said whatever the fuck he wanted. It's worth noting that Pavel Durov is a citizen of the UAE, where it is very hard for an immigrant to get citizenship. But since he is worth anywhere between $15 billion to $20 billion, it makes sense to fast-track his citizenship, I guess. So he decided to go to France, and...
Now, here is where Pavel potentially made a mistake. It turns out that he also holds a citizenship in France, so he's also a French citizen. And he imagined himself being able to travel to France without anything happening, maybe because he doesn't understand what we have come to understand, which is that all of these countries are working together. So Pavel Durov, and this is now a headline in the New York Times, the 39-year-old, he's that young founder of the app Telegram, was taken into custody by French authorities over the weekend. Here is the background story. He was arrested at Le Bourget airport near Paris after landing on a private plane from Azerbaijan, according to French news reports. The French judicial official said on Sunday evening that his time in custody has now been extended. Now, under French law, the initial 24 hours that you're supposed to be detained in custody can be extended up to 96 hours, depending on the seriousness of the criminal accusations. Representatives of the French police and the Interior Ministry declined to comment. In a statement on Telegram, the company, that's Telegram, said that Telegram abides by all of the EU laws and said that Pavel Durov has absolutely nothing to hide. Now, this article also notes that Mr. Durov's arrest has very little precedent. While the EU and the United States government have summoned and questioned leaders of other social media firms, rarely has a major tech leader been arrested over what takes place on such sites. Now, there might be a reason for that, by the way. Elon Musk would like a word, certainly, because people were pointing that out. They were going, wait a second, haven't I heard that, there's Facebook and there's Meta, and they were in trouble at one point because people said that there was child exploitation on the site. Don't all these sites have the potential for bad people to get on them and do things? Why are they going after Pavel Durov? And here's what Elon Musk actually tweeted in response to that. He basically just flagrantly called out Mark Zuckerberg as a sellout. Basically wrote this because he already caved into censorship pressure. Instagram has a massive child exploitation problem, but no arrest for Zuck as he censors speech and gives governments backdoor access to user data. So if you're wondering what the charges are, what did this guy do? What are they just going to make up? This is a theme. All last week we've been talking about how if they want you, they're going to get you. You're not going to believe the audacity of these charges, particularly in France. We'll get to that.
Okay, so let's break this down a bit. Pavel Durov does hold French citizenship, and it was granted to him in 2021, signed off by none other than Emmanuel Macron. When Macron was questioned about it, he said that Durov had done extraordinary things for France and deserved it for being an innovator that could do great things for the French people. Macron's people confirmed that Durov's French citizenship was fast-tracked starting in 2018. No direct contribution statement was ever actually made. Macron said it was all part of a broad strategy to attract people like Durov to France, which I interpret to mean, in line with his redefining the tax code to attract the wealthy back to France, that they want rich people to live there. Anyway, all of the charges are as Candace presented them, namely that Telegram, being what it is, has allowed for the enablement of trafficking, sexual abuse materials, including the spread of child pornography, organized crime, and so on. Durov is being held in France, and even though he is potentially free to move about the country, he currently has to report in person to a police station in Paris twice a week. As for other billionaire tech bros not facing the same stuff, all the platforms are different. If he has managed to keep everyone out of cracking Telegram, good for him, but I have a feeling this is going to unravel in all kinds of ways. I've never used Telegram, but I'll keep an eye on how this goes. Candace goes on to detail the charges with some flair.
So they are charging him for complicity. It's not that he's doing anything wrong. He is just complicit in things that are being done that are wrong. He is complicit in enabling illegal transactions by organized groups. He's complicit in a refusal to communicate at the request of competent authorities, these are his real charges, informations or documents necessary for carrying out and operating interceptions allowed by law. He is complicit in possessing pornographic images of minors. There it is. Gotta always throw in the pedophile thing so that the public just goes, oh, well, it must be true. This arrest must make sense. He's also complicit, another charge, in distributing, offering, or making available pornographic images of minors in organized groups. Are you outraged yet? Don't you see that they had to make this arrest? They also have complicit in acquiring, transporting, possessing, offering, or selling narcotic substances. So that's a very long rap sheet. I'm only reading you a few here, but you get it. Gosh, once again, we have a guy who, and this time he's just complicit in child exploitation, pedophilia, and human trafficking. They love to stick that on men who are a threat to them, right? Who are a threat to the establishment. When we say the establishment, we're talking about the deep state. And when we say the deep state, what we're referring to is a gang, okay? Write your stupid little headlines about Candace Owens. Oh my God, he's just implying that there's a gang. It is obvious that there is a gang, a very big gang. Actually, it's really not that big, but they've amassed quite a bit of power, that there is a global elite operating in Western society, okay? And you can see this. Their demands are as such. You either play ball with them. We are the state, okay? Or we will take you down. And remarkably, their strategy, which is so tried and true, is that they will accuse you of exactly what it is that they are doing. I mean, the audacity of referring to Pavel Durov as someone who is complicit in abetting pedophilia. That's what they said. That's what the French Secret Service, the French state would like us to believe under the authority of Emmanuel Macron. A human being, a child who was statutorily raped back when he was a child by his husband, Brigitte Macron.
Yeah, I left that last part in just in case anyone needed to be reminded that this is Candace Owens. Anyway, of course, she tied this back to her stupid lie she has become known for in establishment media. After bashing the Macrons for a couple of minutes, have anything you want to mention? That's a lot of charges, huh?
That's a lot. Yeah, that's one hell of a rap sheet. I mean,
yeah.
Did she mention tax evasion?
I don't even remember. There's just there's 20 fucking charges.
I feel like that's just the last thing that he needs tacked on there is probably tax evasion.
Yeah, that'd be the one that gets him too, right? Yeah. So next clip.
He also doesn't want you to know other things that go on in his state. Here's just one example. Later on this week, we are going to have for you an interview. I interviewed Xavier Poussard. He was the person who broke the tremendous 3-year-long investigation, the story of who, in fact, Brigitte Macron actually is or was. And remarkably, the state, because they can't go after him for defamation because he told the truth, has decided to go back to a piece that he wrote 3 years ago and to accuse him of violating laws regarding, you're not going to believe me, anti-Semitism. I'm not kidding. I promise you. Yeah, they said he wrote an article over 3 years ago, and in the article he was speaking about media power, and he didn't even say, this is according to him, the word Jewish. He just named the people that hold all of the media power in France. And so now they've opened an investigation into Xavier Poussard, a little late, but better late than never, because he might be an anti-Semite. Are we noticing some trends here? Are we noticing some themes? Are we noticing that a lot of people who have the courage to call out what is happening in this society are always hit with the same exact smears, right? If you're a man, you better look out, because it's human sex trafficking, it's pedophilia, right? They're going to accuse you of some sort of an abuses. You're going to be a part of the Me Too movement. You're going to get smeared, all of us, as conspiracy theorists, racists, homophobes, anti-Semitism. Is anybody else noticing a theme here?
Yeah, so there is a theme here. And it seems to be that bad people are finally being given the treatments they've been deserving. Xavier Poussard, who she mentioned and who she did an interview with this week, is an anti-Semite, and so is the publication he has been charged of for many years. So that's going to be something we have to go through. I thought that maybe we could avoid it. But as I listened to it earlier in the week, there's so much to push back on. Anyway, we're here now with the story of this asshole and Telegram.
I've got to say, there's just nothing that makes me laugh harder than the idea that the state is combating and not themselves abetting pedophilia. It's like I wasn't even alive for the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. Were you guys alive? Was I alive? Was that a dream? Okay, never mind. Maybe I also wasn't alive and I never read the BuzzFeed piece that was published back in 2021. So in case you're not aware of what piece that is, I'm going to show this to you now and basically skim through it, because I covered this extensively on my old show, but it's important enough that every single person should read it so that you really get a grip on who it is that is running our government, our global government. This is the headline. The article is entitled "Secret CIA Files Say Staffers Committed Sex Crimes Involving Children." Okay? Unbelievably, and you can see the print below it, declassified CIA Inspector General reports show a pattern of abuse and a repeated decision by federal prosecutors not to hold the agency personnel accountable. Okay, so people working in the CIA. This article took...
Yeah, the CIA sucks. I'm not going to play the rest of this, which is Candace skimming the article. I took the time to read the whole thing. It isn't that long, but it is well sourced, and I have the link I'm going to include in the episode description. I will be including all of our links in the completed episode descriptions from now on for non-patrons, because I don't want, I want to, if I'm going to give you a complete episode, it's going to be a complete episode with all the links involved. Patrons will, of course, because they're getting complete episodes the night that we fucking record, those links and anything supplemental will always be included for patrons on their posts. But the article is well sourced. Excuse me. So BuzzFeed did a good job, and yes, I can agree with her that the CIA sucks for this and a lot of other reasons. It's really not a good look for the agency, but it is a reminder of how flawed they are, because they're a huge organization and a lot of terrible people are going to be attracted to working for them. I'm in general not a fan of a lot of what they do, and even I suspect that any good things that might have come from them were the byproduct of a lot of bad things and fuck-ups. I see the CIA less as a boogeyman and more as a general annoyance that might occasionally provide a decent service. We can and probably will talk more about the CIA in the future. Moving past this, Candace brings up that Diddy beat his ex-girlfriend and isn't in jail. Never mind that the truth about all of that, including the footage, was released after the statute of limitations had passed, which we covered before. And then we get...
And of course, we also can't go after the pornographers We know that what is happening on these websites like Pornhub. This is a real CNN headline. Pornhub's parent company admits it profited from sex trafficking. And by the way, the DOJ didn't bring about this case because, well, obviously they're involved in sex trafficking, but they were basically had their hands forced to bring about this case because a young woman named Layla put together an organization and went after them. And she was really tough on this and eventually got the public to pay attention to the fact that children were on this website after having been sex trafficked. And what was the result, by the way, in case you're wondering? They got a slap on the wrist. They had to pay a $1.5 million fine, the parent company of Pornhub. That's what happened. They simply had to pay a fine and agree to like a 3-year probation, and that in the future they would comply harder. Yeah, you just have to comply. They decided to defer prosecution altogether under the agreement.
Yeah, so they actually had to pay $1.8 million. A monitor had to be appointed, and they are under scrutiny to remove content and monitor content uploaded to Pornhub. So what happened in short, and you can read the CNN article, I'm going to be linking it. Pornhub's parent company admits it profited from sex trafficking, CNN Business. The article says that Pornhub was hosting, as they do, content that wasn't legal in any sense from a producer that paid them to host the content. It was illegal in all kinds of ways, but it didn't involve kids. It did involve victims of trafficking. Bringing charges against Pornhub at this point would be difficult beyond what has been done, since this was a single provable bad actor uploading content, and Pornhub is now hosted in Canada with a multinational firm. They are no longer based in America. All of that is in the article I'll be linking in the show notes. And then Candace gets back on her bullshit about Pavel Durov.
So, I'll ask the question, who in the world is buying that the reason that they have arrested Pavel Durov is because they're concerned about sex trafficking? Who's also even buying the drug trafficking bit? Am I the only person who remembers learning about the Iran-Contra scandal when our CIA, between 1981 and 1986, the senior administration was quite literally caught facilitating drug sales and arms sale?
Just for context here, before I continue with this, Candace couldn't possibly remember the time that this happened since she was born in 1989.
Yeah.
Now, if she learned about it, kudos to her.
Yeah.
But she could not have remembered this time period.
No.
I was born in 1980, and I barely remember this shit. But moving on, here we go with more of her.
Because, we were doing what we do, trying to overthrow a government. We were trying to fund a group of rebels in Nicaragua. This happens over and over and over again, but I guess the American public, or at least a small contingent of the American public, still...
I'm also going to point out, that happened during the Ronald Reagan years.
Yeah.
Ronald Reagan, a.k.a. the god of the Republican Party, before Trump came to power.
Also, I just have to say, she'd have one hell of a time with Stellaris. Being a government that, if you play it like I do, you take over other governments by making them turn on each other.
Yep. That's the most American thing you've ever said.
Believes that what they see on the movies is real. Like that El Chapo is the #1 drug dealer, and thank goodness our government took him out. Now, our government only takes out their own competition, just to be clear, because it's a gang. They're the gang that won, okay? So they will lie, they will steal, they will literally do anything to take our money. They even, at one point, in one of the charges, it speaks about the potential to money launder on a Telegram app. That is just incredible. That is just incredible. If you've been paying attention to how many times our government said, oopsies, we can't audit where all of the money's going. We're taking your taxes, and you better pay them or we'll lock you up, but we can't tell you where we're spending it. They are the money launderers. They are the drug traffickers. They are the sex traffickers, and they kill anybody who gets in their way, or they imprison them. And so what we have right now, and why this case is so important, is that it is happening to Pavel Durov. They are moving inward, okay? And it was, I think, David Sachs who predicted via a list they'll go after TikTok. They did. TikTok is now one of the most censored social media apps. They said that he predicted that they would go after Telegram. They have now gone after Telegram. why you should be outraged is because they are after us.
Yeah, I don't use Telegram. So once again, Candace is missing the point that Pavel Durov was arrested in France, not America. Telegram isn't Pornhub. And also, David Sacks, spelled Sacks, like a sack of potatoes, is a famous rich guy that made out like a bandit when eBay bought PayPal, and he has been an investor in his various rich guy friends projects, most notably anything attached to Elon Musk. But Pavel Durov has run afoul of the French authorities, not America. I am wondering at this point how many of her brain rot alt-right buddies have been using Telegram, and what would come from a server purge of the service. I don't think that's likely to happen, but we'll see. Anyway.
It's us that they are after. They want to be able to control everything. Who still believes these stupid stories like social network? Oh, I'm sure that's how it happened in a Harvard dorm. Nope. It was a CIA op, obviously, but they always sell it to people in Hollywood. Right? They use Hollywood films to convince you that the way things happened were just so miraculous. Everybody's just building a social media app in their garage. YouTube, Google, what garages are these, right? And then they face really no opposition whatsoever to the government because they are the government. All of these apps are being controlled by the government because ultimately what they want to do is they want to control us. They want to make sure that they actually have no competition. It is actually capitalists that demand socialism, right? Because they don't ever want to have to compete. And because they can't compete in the free markets themselves.
If I may, before she continues, capitalists don't demand socialism.
No.
Capitalists tend to demand fascism.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, letting her continue.
What they do is they overregulate and they overprosecute. And so every person who has a social media app should be speaking out against what is happening to Pavel Durov. We should be outraged by what's happening to Pavel Durov. And we should also be coming to the recognition that the West has never been free. Okay, I feel like that illusion is now dissipating. It's been high time for it to dissipate, okay? It's just been sort of managed. The illusion has been managed, like I said, by Hollywood, making you think that all of these stories and freedom and America is this place. We are seeing more and more that is not the circumstance, and there's really very few corners of the earth that you can run to where you can truly be free. And so the time to start speaking out, now, because I'm telling you guys, it's not much left here. There's just not much time left. And definitely pray for Pavel Durov. I know that I certainly will be doing exactly that. All right, guys, I do want to pause here and thank one of our sponsors. You know I love Preborn.
So yeah, The Social Network is the rare case of a based on a true story movie actually getting a lot of things right while playing loose with the story. Facebook did not start as a CIA op. It started as a way for Mark Zuckerberg and his friends to rate the fuckability of their co-eds.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Behind the Bastards did a much better job of covering them, but yeah. Facebook just happened to be better visually than its closest competitor at the time, which was MySpace. I feel like most of the people listening to this, like me as I record it, were present for the rise of Facebook and are now watching it be what it is. Some people hate it, some people love it, it's whatever. I'd still rather use it than a lot of other services except Mastodon, which is what I generally prefer overall. I kept the Preborn ad in there to remind people that it exists. If they want something to send letters to or call out on social media. Candace then gets into celebrity shit, which in this case is Justin Bieber. I don't really care about it or for it, but Candace is supportive of the Biebs, so whatever. He's got a decent song or two, but I'll post a link to my favorite mashup of Justin Bieber and Slipknot in the show notes. It's called Psychosocial Baby, and I highly recommend y'all check it out. Yeah, Matthew here has heard it many times, because I play it anytime someone brings up Bieber, and I'm like, hey, have you heard Psychosocial Baby? And they're like, what? No. I'm like, well, now you are. Now we're all going to hear it. So here we go with the next one.
Man, I wish I had found that post, like just be able to source it and respond it to the person, because of course everyone who freaks out about Project 2025, they're just bots, right? They are the people that truly believe everything that they watch on MSNBC. If you said, hey, what specifically do you not like about Project 2025? Wouldn't be able to tell you. They've never read the document. These are the people that are so remarkably programmed that their media, that MSNBC, that CNN, they have lied to them consistently for years. And they just cannot imagine that they are lying to them again. They're like, okay, I know they lied about COVID. I know they lied about, Trump and said that he was going to put us back in slave chains. But actually, I was living great under him and the economy was doing well. I know they lied and they told me that Russia interfered in our election and that was proven false after 2 years of saying it. But I really feel like this time about Project 2025 they're telling me the truth. And that no, Trump's really going to do it. He's going to enslave people. And so she should be concerned because she has mixed kids. These are, I promise you, they are the densest citizens in the entire world. And I really do not mean to offend, but it just, to me, defies every bit of logic when you've already had Trump as president to allow yourself to again be subjugated to the exact same media manufactured smears and lies. Like, they are currently living through a Kamala vice presidency and they think she's going to fix things. She's like, when I get in office, you are in office. What do you mean when I get... You are in office. I'm gonna fix this mess. You mean the mess that you could currently fix right now? Why don't you just do that right now?
Yeah, Kamala is the vice president, not the president.
Yeah.
So this all comes from a person that quoted a CNN article just minutes ago and quotes them often. She does the same shit with BuzzFeed, who she quoted earlier. And, of course, Wikipedia, who she quotes often.
And then tells you not to believe anything that's on Wikipedia.
Yeah, or the other sites.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we went through a little of Project 25 on this show, and I included a link for the freeloaders and the full document on our Patreon. What Candace is, of course, being glib about is the fact that Kamala Harris is not the president. The vice president doesn't, by design, have access to the same levers of power, and she knows it. This is just bullshit. And it's something that I keep hearing come up from people where they go, oh, well, she could do this or that. It's like, no. You know she can't.
Yeah.
You know they can't. Anyway. And, of course, Trump did a lot of fucky shit during his first term that was designed to be followed up on in his second term, had it happened in 2020. Instead, the alt-right has had 4 years to solidify their plans and gotten bold enough to literally print them for the public. She goes on to say that Project 25 is nothing to worry about. Candace entertains several minutes of user comments and then ends episode 52 with...
Locals.com, give whatever you can, even if it's just $5 for the whole year. This is what keeps us free. It allows me to keep saying what I say until they say I can't anymore and lock me up and accuse me of human child sex trafficking, pedophilia, pornography, and say that they're doing it all to protect freedoms of Americans and people worldwide, when in reality they're a gang, they're gangsters, and they are the pedophiles and the human sex traffickers, and I hate them all. I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, so I'm including screenshots of what it looks like when you use the Locals app to support her. It's a minimum $80 buy-in when you use Locals coins. Like, it's minimum to buy $80 worth of Locals coins. That's where it starts.
Yeah.
It goes up $850, $900, $950, $1,000, and $1,200. So any amount from $80 down to $120. And then you spread those coins around the site. You spread their little false economy money around the site.
God.
And if you want to support her, there's three tier levels, and that's all there is on her site. 3 fucking tier levels. 12 months, which is 770 coins. You know, just 30 coins shy of the minimum $80 you'd have to spend. 6 months, which is 420 coins. That just occurred to me.
420?
Yeah. I didn't catch that before. And then 3 months of 210 coins. Which is equal to $21, $42, and $77. So, yeah, I took screenshots because I have 0 coins left because I'm not going to buy coins for her shit. And anyway, yeah, so you cannot. She keeps saying this. She says it at nearly the end of every fucking episode. Just go to locals.com and give us whatever you can. You know, $5 a month, $30 for the year. You can't do that. You could not do that. Are we letting a cat in? Yep, there she is.
Yep.
Kitty.
Well,
Yeah, let her get comfortable. All right. So, now we go into episode 53. And I'm going to stop harping on the locals thing so much. It just bugs me. It bugs me, but I might bring it up every now and then if she really presses it hard. But here's something that just came up yesterday, and I haven't looked very far into it. I figure it'll make it into next week's episode. But there was a company known as Tenet. You know, like the movie?
yeah.
Tenet. Have you heard about this?
No. I mean, I've watched the movie. The movie's pretty
It
good.
has nothing
but-
to do with this.
Oh, well.
It's just
Okay.
similar spelling. Okay. So Tenet has received millions of dollars from the Russian state. It turns out it was a front for Russia Today.
Okay.
Okay. This gets so wild. I read this story last night when I was laying down. I was scrolling the newsfeed and I was like, I saw Tucker Carlson and Dave Rubin had been mentioned. And I was like, oh, Rubin. You know, like my brain just starts firing off that these two guys are connected to Candace,
Yeah.
as well as others. Tim Pool, there were some other names. I didn't see Candace's name mentioned, but I didn't look further into it, and I'm going to do that this week. But anyway, yeah. Apparently, Tenet was funneling money to these people to get them to do Putin and Russia stand like commentary,
Ah.
to get them to speak favorably.
Yeah.
And they've been doing this since the war on Ukraine started. So, yeah. The Department of Justice, it took them a while to bust in, but they busted in.
Yeah.
And apparently, like it was two women that are on the run, and I think there was just a couple of other bad actors in there, but yeah, two Russian women that are currently at large were the ones that facilitated all of this money gathering and handing out.
Jesus.
So yeah, millions of dollars going to all these right wing chuckle fucks to speak favorably of the Russian state.
Mm-hmm.
And Tim Pool, because he was directly mentioned in press releases, I think, he came out on Twitter. It looked like a tweet anyway. Came out on Twitter yesterday and said that he had no idea, but, you know, fuck Putin and all this stuff. And people were responding to him with, like, how could you not know?
Yeah.
Like, someone comes to you with like a truck full of money and they're just like, talk favorably about, you know, Putin and Russia. Like, how could you not fucking know? Come
Yeah.
on.
How could you not put two and two together? And
Yeah. You're supposed, you know, you put yourself up as the smart guy and blah, blah, blah. You didn't, fuck you, you know?
Oh, that's good. The other portion to that is, okay, so let me get this straight. You didn't know that the people that were giving you money wanted you to speak favorably about Putin and Russia. You just already think favorably about them then?
Right.
I mean, if you weren't being paid to do it, then, you know.
Yeah. It's going to be funny to see how this unfolds, because now I have one more episode to catch up on the Candace show for this week, but I don't know if she's put one up today. Like I'm like 2 days behind.
Okay.
Well, no, actually, really, I'm only 2 days behind because there was one day where she didn't put anything up.
Oh,
So
she skipped today.
yeah, like she skipped a day on uploads. So I don't think I'm actually 2 days behind. I think she just sucks. So back into it here. So here's the episode 53 cold open.
All right, guys, happy Tuesday. What do I have for you today? Well, it's the lawsuit that the media wants conveniently memory hold. Don't worry, I won't let it go. Honestly, when I really think back to when the media turned on me, it really was when I covered this lawsuit. I think that was the first time that all of these attacks were coming out of nowhere. Candace just making wild accusations. I'm like, I actually just read the Diddy lawsuit. And today it's a crazy update because the guy who brought forth that lawsuit, a producer named Rodney Jones, also known as Lil Rod, and he also brought that lawsuit not just against Diddy, but Universal Music Group and others. He credibly accused them of sexual assault, grooming, even a shooting cover-up. Well, guess what? After months spent in hiding, Rodney Jones is speaking out, and we have the explosive update for you. And speaking of those who are willing to take a stand, RFK Jr. issued a profound statement against Big Pharma, and we have got to run that for you. I should have run it much earlier. Do you guys think that he would have been a better pick for VP? I'm not saying I think that, I'm asking you, what do you think? And lastly, I'm sure you guys saw this, but Mark Zuckerberg did something strange.
That's such an admission.
He really came out guns a-blazing against the Biden administration, saying that he was pressured by them to censor Facebook. Oh, so interesting. I wonder why they wanted him to censor Facebook. Because they were lying. So why has he decided to speak out now, and is it going to make a difference? We're going to talk about that. All that coming up on Candace.
I'm sorry, she wants a VP whose nickname is Lil Rod?
No.
No? Okay.
You kind of blended shit together.
Okay, that's what I thought, because I was like, wait, that can't be right.
Lil Rod is Rodney Jones. He's the guy who's suing Diddy.
Okay, yeah.
RFK Jr.
Oh, shit, I don't even know where I got RFK from fucking Lil Rod.
Well, because she talked about RFK as well.
Okay.
Yeah. RFK, she said, she asked the question, would RFK have been a better choice for VP?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. I think that I suspect you of not being a person I'm going to like if you want to run with Trump regardless.
Yeah.
So, but one of the many things about RFK, something that I didn't bother mentioning until now, but it is a public fact, people made a lot of hay about it and they still continue to do so, is that he had come out 2-3 months ago and said that he had a brain worm that had eaten parts of his brain and died inside.
Jesus Christ.
So, make of that what you will. If that's true, that's horrifying.
Yeah.
If it's true, it's horrifying. If it's not true, why would you make it up?
Also,
the only reason you would make that up is to get on like an assistance program, to get some sort of pity. To be like, hey guys, it's not me, it was the worm. But the worm's dead, and I'm better now, so I'm just going to bow out of all of this. I'm going to go live on the money I made.
What the fuck?
Yeah, brainworm, right? Yeah, look that up sometime. RFK brainworm. There are credible stories because he came out himself and said it. Yes. So we're not going to run through the Diddy garbage.
Of course.
But I will provide a short update regarding Candace's claims. One, the lawsuit was filed in February 2024, this year, in New York, but it started changing in March of 2024 with defendants Chalice Recording Studios and Ethiopia Habtemarium being dropped from the suit. Chalice Recording Studios is where Lil Rod claims that Diddy and possibly his son and their security guy shot a man in a restroom.
That's a lot of.
Now, it gets worse because Lil Rod claims that he picked the man up and took him outside.
Okay.
And waited for paramedics to arrive.
Okay.
Now, he says that when the police showed up, they immediately sided with Diddy. They got the man stable, and they got him to a hospital.
Okay.
He claims that the police said that this guy, this rapper who's only been known as G in all of this,
okay,
that G the rapper, the police said he was shot like a few blocks away.
Okay.
And got to the recording studio and collapsed.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what the cops are saying. This guy, among all the witnesses that would have been there, because it was a party, among all the witnesses that would have been there, among everybody that would have been there, among the evidence that would have fucking been there.
Yeah.
Because he sued the recording studio for covering up the thing. The recording studio was dropped from the case because there was no fucking evidence.
Yeah.
One of the witnesses, Ethiopia Habtemariam, I think is the last name, also dropped from the suit because they weren't a witness to this because it didn't fucking happen there.
Let me get this straight. Ethiopia
Habtemariam, yes.
Habtemariam is a person?
That's a person.
That's a person.
We're talking about music.
Okay, fair enough, but that's a person.
Yes. You know?
I hope to God that is their stage name.
I mean, it could be their real name. You know? I mean...
Man, I'm going to go to Ethiopia's later. You know,
Prince's real name was Prince Rogers Nelson. That is on his birth certificate.
Okay, fair enough.
The patron saint of Minneapolis is literally named Prince. That is a fact. People have crazy-ass names. We kind of have crazy-ass names in the real life, but we have very common names here. We went opposites. Okay?
Fair enough. Fair. But
I mean, this guy goes by Lil Rod because his name is Rodney Jones. I mean, Rodney Jones will disappear on a name list, but Lil Rod, who's that?
Yeah.
It's a very good tactic for him, but...
I mean, that's fair, you know.
So, it gets worse, because there's more.
Okay.
In May of this year, Rodney Jones dropped Universal Music Group, Motown Records, and the CEO of Universal Music Group, Lucian Grange, from the lawsuit. We had talked about Grange earlier on.
Yeah.
So to recap, the recording studio where he alleges that Diddy shot a guy who was only referred to as G in the lawsuit, the recording studio has been dropped. Person he said was a witness has been dropped. He has dropped the parties he said that Diddy was running parties for to record partiers for leverage. He still has a suit against Diddy for all kinds of allegations that are as yet without credible evidence. So whatever. Normally, I wouldn't care, but since Candace doesn't want to let it go, we have to give it some time. And that's all the time we are giving it. Skipping past all of that noise took 17 minutes off of this show.
Jesus.
Which is nearly half the runtime of that episode.
Also, it's the Diddy and his son and a security guard.
Yes.
Is he saying that all three of them shot a man?
Unclear.
I feel like that's something you want to be a little bit more clear on, firstly. Yeah. And secondly, that's three mouths that could be very easily open in the, time of to the now.
Yeah. Well, so yeah, she certainly hasn't stayed current with it, or she would know everything that I just said about various parties being dropped. The same people she fucking named in the clip.
Yeah.
Yeah. I doubt Diddy is entirely innocent, but I also think Rodney Jones is mostly a liar. After an ad read for Grand Canyon University, we get into the Zuckerberg material.
All right, guys, let's get into some stories. I don't know if you saw this trending. I saw it trending on X. Basically, Mark Zuckerberg did something quite interesting. I don't really know what to think of him lately. I just don't know. He's growing his hair out. He's like a different Mark Zuckerberg now. See, look, he's got long hair. I feel like that means something. It means he's freeing himself from something. Look, he's a coward. There's no question. But I think that he's a coward with some regret for having been a coward, which is why what he has done, he's admitted in a public letter that his company was pressured by the Biden-Harris administration to censor Americans, particularly regarding COVID-19 content. So he made that admission again in a letter to the House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan of Ohio. And so I'm going to just read you a portion of Mark Zuckerberg's letter. You can pull it up right there, Chris, and just let it sit there for a bit. He wrote, Chairman Jordan, I appreciate the committee's interest in content moderation on online platforms. As you are aware, Meta has produced thousands of documents as part of your investigation and made 12 employees available for transcribed interviews. Further to our cooperation with your investigation, I welcome the opportunity to share what I have taken away from this process. There is a lot of talk right now about how the U.S. government interacts with companies like Meta, and I want to be clear about our position. Our platforms are for everyone. We're about promoting speech and helping people connect in a safe and secure way. As part of this, we regularly hear from governments around the world and others with various concerns around public discourse and public safety. In 2021, senior officials from the Biden administration, including the White House, repeatedly pressured our teams for months to censor certain COVID-19 content, including humor and satire, and expressed a lot of frustration with our teams when we didn't agree. Ultimately, it was our decision whether or not to take the content down, and we own our decisions, including COVID-19 related changes that we made to our enforcement in the wake of this pressure. I believe the government pressure was wrong, and I regret that we were not more outspoken about it. I also think we made some choices that, with the benefit of hindsight and new information, we wouldn't make today. Like I said to our teams at the time, I feel strongly that we should not compromise our content standards due to pressure from any administration, either direction, and we're ready to push back if something like this happens again. So, yeah, I think that's really important that he is speaking out and saying that. But the question is, why now? He then also speaks about the Biden family leading up to the 2020 election and how the FBI essentially warned him that this is Russian disinformation. We know it wasn't Russian disinformation. We know that it was a fact that they had shady dealings in Ukraine. We know that it is also a fact that the laptop was authentic, and yet Facebook suppressed it because they had pressure from the FBI. And he is now admitting all of that on record. Again, I'll ask the question, why is he doing that? Well, it's got to be maybe one of a few things here. Either he is watching what's happening to Pavel Durov, and he's having a spiritual change, because I believe that people can change spiritually, and I do believe right now the Holy Spirit is working through a lot of people, and maybe he is recognizing that he has been a coward in the past, and that he has been pressured, and that he's tired of helping the bad guys. And so he's telling the public right now, maybe this is him saying to the public, you are about to elect this again into office. People that censored you, people that lied to you, people that allowed many people to go out and get injured. And they may have made a different decision about whether or not they would have gotten the vaccine had they have been allowed speech, meaning had they have been allowed to listen to different perspectives. Mine was one of them. I said to people, and I got hit on Facebook, where they actually stopped my advertising on my page because I said, don't get this vaccine, and here's why. Okay.
So there's the beef. There it is. That's her beef with this Jewish man. So the actual truth here is that the Biden administration asked but didn't demand that Facebook moderate content about COVID-19 in 2021. Facebook did that on its own during the main phases of the pandemic. Second, the FBI was concerned that the Hunter Biden laptop story and the mess about Burisma were Russian interference operations because they were still gathering evidence. And the story that Facebook demoted, while fact checkers looked into it, came from the fucking New York Post. The Post has a long history of fuckery, and they were right to be concerned. But Candace can't just let it go. Gotta follow up with...
Okay. Don't forget, I notoriously even had a lawsuit against Facebook because of the stuff that they were saying that I was lying about. And I'm so glad that he now has the benefit of hindsight, because my lawsuit, they wouldn't even allow my lawsuit to go through, because the fact of the matter is that you have district attorneys that are even bought out. I mean, the entire legal system is crap. Right? You have George Soros, who's personally seeing to it that DAs are being elected to do his bidding all across America.
Nope.
This is how you get, prosecution against Donald Trump for something that happened, legally speaking, decades ago.
Nope.
They're like, just change the law so that we can prosecute him anyways, because
Nope.
Jean Carroll wants to prosecute him and we want to see him go down. Okay, this is the world that we live in. Okay, and Mark Zuckerberg allowed that. He allowed people like me to get censored for trying to get different information out to people so that they could make a rational decision and not one that was made out of fear. And so he regrets that, and maybe he regrets that for a variety of reasons, and maybe he is trying to signal to the public, like, hey, don't elect these people again. Like, evil is very close to winning. Now the question is it going to impact the election? No. Nope. You cannot tell me anything different when it comes to Kamala Harris supporters. I am telling you, these people are mesmerized by the mainstream media. Like, they are a study in hypnosis. Like, they don't call it TV programming for nothing. These people are programmed bots. They are the ones that believed the virus was going to kill them, believe they needed the vaccine, got the vaccine, ignored their side effects, let their grandmas die alone. Then when the media said, never mind, we lied about everything, they were like, it's okay, I forgive you. It's like a toxic relationship. They're in a toxic relationship with the media, right? And then the media was like, we hate Kamala. They were like, I hate her too. And then like 2 weeks ago, they were like, never mind, we love her. She's Beyonce. And they're like, I love her too. She's Beyonce. I love Kamala Harris. I mean, I'm telling you, these are bots. There's just nothing's going to change them. Literally, Mark Zuckerberg could show the corruption. He could be like, look, these are the emails I got. Look, they put a gun to my head, a figurative gun to my head, or a literal gun to my head. He could do all of that, and they wouldn't change their vote. I am telling you, I have seen people that are this programmed. They just have decided to follow that final instruction, that final Aurelian instruction, not to believe their own eyes. And so I'm grateful that Mark Zuckerberg is speaking out. I'm grateful that people are now aware of what we said back in 2021, that they were using censorship to force people to put a vaccine in their arm and earn themselves trillions of dollars. But I'm afraid that I do believe that it's also too little, too late. All right, guys, before we get into this next story, I want to remind you guys about American financing. I know there's...
I feel like her biggest beef with the pandemic wasn't that, well, actually, no, it was that it shut everything down. It's because she couldn't get out to do her damn thing for blackout.
Yeah.
I feel like that's where she runs into why she always brings it back to that and blaming that as,
Yeah.
If you'd let people, get out of their houses and be more informed, I'd have more money in my coffers.
Yeah, right. I mean, and honestly, she might not have, she might not have, I don't know. There's, her life could have gone a little differently, but I'm pretty sure it would have wound up here.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, that was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
First, Candace did not have a lawsuit against Facebook.
Why would you lie about suing a
It's so much dumber.
Like that?
It's so much dumber.
Okay.
She sued USA Today
All right.
and another company known as Lead Stories LLC that had been employed as fact checkers for Facebook content.
Okay.
Her case was that they had cut into her ability to earn money on the platform. The judge threw out the case, and Candace appealed it to the Delaware Supreme Court. They dismissed the case, and it went to the U.S. Supreme Court, who declined to hear it. George Soros is not getting DAs to do his bidding. Trump was not prosecuted for the rape that he did to E. Jean Carroll in the 80s. He was ordered to pay for defaming her publicly after her book came out a couple of years ago. And then, when he wouldn't take the hint from losing in court and being ordered to pay her about $8 million, he was sued again and ordered to pay up over $80 million to her for further defamation. That happened within the last few years. He wasn't prosecuted or sued for the rape because the statute of limitations, a thing Candace can't possibly understand, long passed. No new laws were conceived to go after the Orange Emperor. COVID-19 was scary and changed how a lot of the world was working or not working. I'm glad to this day that I got vaxxed and that I compelled others to get vaxxed. I doubt Zuckerberg has emails telling him to do this or else. Come the fuck on. Candace goes on to blow up her view of RFK Jr., and it's more anti-vax crap, so we are moving past it. Candace goes on to claim that she will be reproducing a docuseries she did called A Shot in the Dark about vaccines. And if she puts it up publicly, we will, of course, go through it. Gross, but it has to be done. Yes?
When you said reproducing, the first thing that came to my head was, why does she need to bring more kids into her home? I don't know why that was my first thought, but it was.
I have a feeling. I hope I'm wrong. I'm hoping she stops at 3. But I have a feeling we're going to get 5.
In total?
Until she's 40.
Okay.
She's 35 right now.
Yep. There's still room for 2 more.
There is room for 2 more. Maybe more if she keeps going, but...
I was going to say, if they play the time zones right... Well, see,
here's what's fucked up, right?
Yeah.
Part of Project 2025 is that they want to get rid of in vitro fertilization.
Okay.
No real reason for that.
They just...
Yeah. Now, They want to get rid of IVF treatments. That's what it's referred to as, in vitro fertilization, IVF. They want to get rid of that as a treatment, like as a thing that even you as a person with money, because IVF ain't cheap.
No.
But yeah, you as a person with money could not in America get an IVF done.
Okay.
You would have to literally go into Canada or Mexico if you're going to keep it on the continent, as like an immediate thing.
Yeah.
I would expect smart IVF practitioners to already have those deals set up.
Yeah.
If the worst thing possible happens in November. But anyway, they want to do that. Candace has talked about how a lot of her friends at her similar age of 35-ish are trying to have families and are having trouble. Now, IVF is a way to get around that trouble.
Yeah.
So, it's kind of like if she goes to have a couple more kids,
mm-hmm.
and it's difficult, she might have to seek out IVF.
Which means she would have to go to Canada or Mexico if she gets what
at a
she
minimum.
wants. Yeah.
At a minimum.
If it's not leave the continent altogether.
Well, but she doesn't want to confront that taking IVF away as an option at all is in the book, she says, is not a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny how that comes home to roost.
Yeah.
It's not in this episode. It's not in her most recent ones that I can tell. But she talked about it a little bit earlier today in an episode that I was listening to, which we'll cover next week. But she talked about how people are hitting Trump up for the exact specifics that he's willing to put his name behind. Because in Project 25, they want to get rid of abortion. They want to get rid of IVF treatments. Whereas Trump has said publicly that he's all for those things.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that comes on the heels of him saying that he didn't see a problem with Project 25. Mm-hmm. But since there was such public backlash, he's had to come back against it and be like, I haven't even read it. I don't know anything that's in it. And it's like, buddy, you know all the names that are in that book.
Yeah.
So, go fuck yourself. But, yeah. So, anyway. Talking about her shot in the dark thing. She said, I think it was later in this week, in user comments, but she said that she might put it up on locals. I'm going to try to find a way to not have to pay for it.
Yeah.
To get it. I'm going to have to put my old hacker brain back to work. So yeah, here's the next clip.
And he's putting himself out there. I am putting myself out there as somebody who considers myself like a student of his children's health defense. And I then went and created Shot in the Dark for moms so they could have, and dads, so they could have something accessible to then go to the pediatrician and not feel like an idiot when all they're doing is saying, if you don't do this, your kid's gonna die. Like, what an awful thing to say to a vulnerable parent right when their child is born. God got it wrong. If you don't let us inject something into him right now, he's gonna die. Like, that doesn't even pass the common sense check. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean he's wrong if he doesn't have vitamin K? He's gonna die. Okay, well, if all babies are being born without a certain amount of vitamin K in them, maybe they don't need it on that first day. That's like the common sense thing. And they're pulling us into this humanist society, making people sick, making people ill. Like I said, all of the vaccines, the history is astounding. And the amount of money that I had to pay to even access it. Like, you have to be a doctor to even access the studies that they did years ago. Or you have to pay an offensive amount to access a study. And I did it because it was worth it. And so I'm really pleased to announce the Shot in the Dark is going to come back. We will begin releasing episodes again next month, and we will be announcing more in the future about how you can access those episodes. Obviously, we will make it available to all of our local supporters as extra content, but I just wanted to play that for you because it is just time. World, awaken. Awaken to the big pharma industry. Awaken to the pharmaceutical complex, the industrial complex. Awaken to the fact that they are making you sick and then selling you the cure. And look through the history of all the people that have been bold enough to come out and tell you this, and we're called quacks. Oh, he's a quack doctor. He's a crazy doctor. You know what's quack and crazy? Like telling me that a perfectly healthy child needs like 78 to 80 vaccines before they can leave high school. That's quacky to me. And so the world is changing. We're awakening to the evil. We are awakening.
Okay, so right off the top, babies routinely get either injections, which is the preferred method, or oral administration of vitamin K shortly after birth because humans are born deficient in it, and giving it to newborns reduces death due to this deficiency by a staggering amount. It can be declined, but it's nonsense to do that. Babies get a very low amount of vitamin K in breast milk. There is a mountain of evidence that supports this. I find it wild that she will pay for studies to be available to her that are utter bullshit, but doesn't want to see studies that support actual science. And since she said in there that it will be on locals, I'll have to watch the locals traffic. See, some of her supporters do things on locals, like make book lists on Amazon for her fans that can't afford a locals membership but still want to be in the know. So maybe that'll happen. Such as one person, I was on locals and I was reading through the comment threads, and somebody said, if you can't afford to be here, here's Candace's book list. And they gave an Amazon link.
Oh.
I took screenshots.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, no. And, yeah, so. Yeah, so maybe that'll happen. Regardless, I don't want to support her there for access to this shit, but if I somehow get it, it will be played here and debunked accordingly. Moving on, we are skipping episode 54 and 55. They would have been relevant in their own ways this week, but there's a lot to cover regarding episode 56, which is her interview, if it can be called that, with Xavier Poussard. Just for context, though, this is the cold open from episode 54.
All right, guys, happy hump day. So in the past, you may have sensed my general disdain for humanity as dictated by TikTok trends. Well, someone has brought to my attention that another such trend has emerged. This time, women are intentionally getting pregnant with the goal of being a single mother. We don't need no men, no mo. Does that sound insane to you? Well, welcome to the world of TikTok, where you can find an asylum that best suits you. Plus, update regarding Pavel Durov, a Telegram founder. Well, the plot is thickening because we have just been informed that in addition to the over the weekend saga, him being wanted for being complicit in sex and drug trafficking, well, now the public is being told that on top of all of that, he's also a domestic abuser. Yep. Pavel Durov beats women, trust the science, or beats children, trust the science. I don't know. I'll give you guys an update. All that and more today coming up on Candace.
Yeah, so about that. At the time of this writing, Pavel Durov's charges of child abuse are separate from his case in France, and a couple of occasions have been called out from the mother of the kid. In one such incident in Paris in November of 2021, where Durov allegedly slapped his son, who was about 4 years old at the time, on the back, he then lifted him off the ground and shook him forcefully. In total, the complaint from the Swiss authorities alleges that on at least 5 occasions between 2021 and 2023, Durov was violent to the boy, who is now 7. The kid has reportedly suffered from this. Candace will go on in this episode to lay blame on the mother over the course of several minutes, and we're not going to play it, but she is just basically going to bat for Pavel Durov. And just so we cover all the bases, here's the cold open for episode 55.
All right, guys, happy Thursday. Today is actually Michael Jackson's birthday. He would have been 66 years old today. Now, I know that some of you guys are having flashbacks to your childhood, thinking about all that Michael Jackson and his music meant to you, but a great many more of you are perhaps thinking, but Candace, wasn't he a pedophile? The media, man, it is one hell of an entity. It really can have you thinking that the bad people are good and the good people are bad. So today, I am going to tell you the true story of what happened to Michael Jackson. What and who killed Michael Jackson. Welcome to Candace.
Yeah, so she actually spends most of this episode talking about Michael Jackson. Candace was a fan of his work and does a semi-decent job of running through the allegations against him. I always liked his hits, but I never really knew what to make of all the allegations. His death was unfortunate, and Candace ties Jackson's death and allegations to her own struggles, of course, so if any of you go looking for that episode to watch or listen to, you have been warned. What goes from a fangirl memoriam turns into a personal pity party eventually. And now, on to episode 56, the interview, if it can be called that, with Xavier Poussard. The cold open for this one is really not there. So, bear with it. Before we get into this fully, I just want to say that I'm cutting very little from this, and we'll be playing and commenting on it as we go. As also from the top, I am not a fan of Macron or his policies in France, but the French people would rather have him than the fascist Marine Le Pen. And there have been no claims of election fuckery being made over there to my knowledge, so they seem okay with him. To that end, what follows is a lot of bullshit. Anyway.
Alright guys, so the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and ears. It was their final, most essential command. That obviously is a quotation, a very popular quotation from George Orwell's dystopian novel, 1984. It was a fictional warning of the society to come, a prediction that a global elite would control a society with a centralized economy, where there would be thought police, criminalized speech, a ministry of truth, which would wipe away history and rule society with an ever-present. Well, today that society, that fictional society, has become a reality. We have the Ministry of Truth in the form of mainstream journalists. They lie to protect the global elite, fact checkers and smears of any opponents to their official version of past and present. You know, I started to realize that 1984 was a reality when I quite accidentally stumbled upon the curious case of Brigitte Macron.
Yeah, regular listeners know that Candace said she was reading an article in the news tabloid The Daily Mail about the theory being stupid and debunkable. I also went to that story to pull the photos of Brigitte as a young girl, which were posted on our Patreon. Moving on.
Yes, the First Lady of France, as presented in a set of documents, a series written by a journalist named Xavier Poussard. He insisted that Brigitte Macron was actually born a man named Jean-Michel Trogneux, and I thought, that's so kooky and crazy. It's going to be super easy to debunk that. And boy, was I in for a surprise, realizing that he had done years of research and presented a solid case that Brigitte Macron was in fact born a man. So now what's happened? Well, of course, they didn't accept that. The mainstream press called everybody crazy and a conspiracy theorist and unhinged. We've heard all of their words, their pedophile psychology, as I like to call it, thanks to Sigmund Freud being the father of that sort of gaslighting. Now I'm going to show you a photo, and I want to remind you not to believe your own eyes. Here is a photo of Brigitte Macron. She's vacationing with her husband on a boat. And here it is closer. And it does seem that there might be something that doesn't belong. But again, do not believe your own eyes.
Yeah, that photo, which I will not be including in the show notes, not even for patrons, is doctored. It's bullshit. Not even good bullshit like our AI theme songs. As for the other things she said, Xavier Poussard does own this entire fuckery to an extent, in that he chose to publish the work of a citizen journalist with no credentials or real evidence. And that person was Natasha Ray. Anyway.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat today because I have been in communication with the journalist that broke this massive story.
Not a journalist.
In a fair world, and we don't live in one, he would have won a Pulitzer. Instead, what is happening is that he is all but avoiding going back to France, not because he's being prosecuted for breaking the story, but because now they are trying to boggle him down legally by digging up an old story he wrote 3 years ago and accusing him of, you're not going to believe it, guys, anti-Semitism.
Okay.
Yep.
Something that I noticed from the beginning of her thing, of this one anyway.
Yeah.
Episode whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah, 56, I think, yep.
Yeah, 56. From the beginning to the point we are at now. Beginning, she started actually very slow and mellow. And I was actually okay, so y'all know that we record in my room. Well, I usually sit on my bed, and sometimes I lean back when it's her talking. I was actually starting to fall asleep for a minute there. Because she actually sounded relatively soothing for a minute. And then she started up with the fucking Chihuahua speech.
Yeah.
And now, that woke me back up again. Because it was like, she was slow and mellow, and it was like, I could actually...
There's a reason for that, and I'm going to tell you why.
Oh, okay. Okay, let's hear it.
Poussard does not speak English.
Okay.
So, in this episode, he starts speaking French, and they play like a tiny amount of it, and then an English translation comes in.
Okay.
I believe she is speaking at a slower speed for the translator on his end.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that's her tone throughout this episode.
Is actually relatively slow.
Yeah. Is slowing down the Gish Gallop.
See, if she could speak like that more often, maybe people would actually believe her more.
No. Because it would mean that she would either have to spend more time doing her show to pack in the same amount of bullshit.
I mean, she could just I don't know, maybe she could break it up more, only have to do recording on say one day and then just break it up into 5 pieces and split it up through the week and...
Shut up, don't give her our idea. Don't do that.
I'm just saying she could spend a lot more time with the family that she claims to love so much than, she does doing this.
Yeah,
shit.
nah. Okay.
She could save so much of her own time.
Well, they're going after Poussard for anti-Semitism because he is in fact anti-Semitic. That will come out more, oh my God, so much more, over the course of this interview. It should also be noted that while France has some very loose free speech laws... What?
You said French.
France has some very loose free speech laws. Those don't extend to anti-Semitism or Nazism. However, even given all of this, I couldn't find any information at this time that he is actually wanted for anti-Semitism in France. That is actually bullshit. Next clip.
Breaking the rules of anti-Semitism, as what he's actually doing is potentially exposing a pedophile ring that doesn't just expand across France, but as we are starting to realize as we do more research, it does appear to be a global elite ring. So we're going to speak to him, going to remind you that there still has not been a single photo presented to the public that is not easily debunked of Brigitte Macron growing up.
There are photos of her as a girl, and someone that was addicted to French TV shows from the 80s. I found this on a blog. He actually took a screen grab of Brigitte with a man about her own age at the time from a French TV series that did man-on-the-street interviews. Yeah. Now, the interesting thing about that is that they don't know if that guy was her husband, like the father of her kids, or not. Because that man was very insular. He didn't like press. He didn't want to be photographed, any of that. And in France, they actually respect that.
Yeah.
And also, he had a ton of money. And if he wasn't getting respected, he could have owned whatever news outlet decided he didn't need to be respected.
Fair.
Yeah. Yeah, old money has that privilege. Yeah. So, yeah, next up.
A treat. I am so excited to have Xavier Poussard here. And as I mentioned, there have been so many lies in the mainstream media just trying to distract people from looking into this strange case of Brigitte Macron, leading people to believe that the young woman is being sued because she lied about Brigitte being a man, when in fact that young woman did not publish the initial set of articles. It was published.
Yeah, Candace got ahead of herself. I had to replay that section of the presentation several times to make sure that it wasn't skipping or something. What she fumbles over there is that Natasha Ray presented the story in a long interview with a spiritual medium, and they will mention this again later on. Ray and the other woman, Amandine Roy, are being tried in court, and the trial began 3 years after the initial claims were made. But the suit was originally filed in 2022 by both Brigitte and Jean-Michel Tragneau. It takes as much time in France as it does anywhere else to get justice, it seems, as the decision in the case against the women is expected on September 12th.
Jesus.
So, like, a week from now. Which, for people in the future, is roughly a week after this airs on Patreon.
Yeah. Oh, hey, they get prosecuted on my payday.
Oh, nice. It's going to be payday for somebody else in France. I'm telling you that shit.
Yeah.
In Fate Set Documents, and the writer who we're speaking with today, his name is Xavier Poussard. Xavier, thank you so much for joining me. I'll jump in right away with a question. How did you begin this investigation?
Merci, Candace, pour l'invitation.
Thank you for the invitation, Candace.
So yeah, Poussard uses a translator for this. From what I could glean online, he either doesn't speak English or he's not great at it. I couldn't get any information on who or what the translator is, and that's an important thing, I think, that we're going to get to later on. Anyway.
First off, this investigation is just one. We're a confidential newsletter which is published in print. Essentially, our publication deals with news pertaining to powered networks, and we're also an archive center. In 2012, we opened a file pertaining to Brigitte Macron because the history surrounding her seemed very strange. At that time, Emmanuel Macron was appointed principal advisor to the socialist president François Hollande.
So right off the bat, this is bullshit. The principal advisor role was filled by Jean-Pierre Jouyet, not Emmanuel Macron. Macron's roles were as Deputy Secretary General of the LSE starting May 2012, when Hollande's government took power. And then in 2014, he transitioned to Minister of Economics, Industry, and Digital Affairs, where he made several pro-business reforms that pissed off Hollande's voters. For anyone confused, the Deputy Secretary General job was as both an advisor to the president and as a direct assistant to the actual Secretary General of the LSE, which is similar to our Secretary of State and possibly Press Secretary, but he was not the principal advisor.
Okay.
I feel like for a Frenchman,
he should know.
He should know this. I, as an American, should not be able to find it out in 30 fucking seconds.
I also gotta say, I'm glad that you're the one reading these things, because if I looked at any of them French names as you just listed them off, I'm fairly certain I would have butchered them.
I'm pretty sure I butchered them.
Yeah, but
I just probably butchered them a little less.
Yeah, you at least sounded passable though, with at least putting the French honton in there. You know,
I love the French. They're great people. I do. They're so good. Look, one of my favorite quotes from Bourdain was he said, "I love the French. Even coming down from the top of a mountain, we have just found a place where we can open up a bottle of wine and some food." He's like, they never go long without eating well. He's like, I love the French. He wasn't wrong. That's another thing, right? Okay, I'm off track a little bit here. All right, so Candace,
Yeah.
you've asked the question many times. What the fuck did France do?
Yeah.
I still don't know. Okay, that's the mystery for us at this point. Here's the deal. Okay, so I don't remember if it's in the script or if I just talked about it at another time, but she had done a okay, so she turned Catholic, right, last year. Mm-hmm. And her and her husband, rather, she gave a presentation at this recent conference called Catholics for Catholics.
Yeah.
And while there, she talked about what happened after she converted to Catholicism, is that her and her husband went on this pilgrimage. The pilgrimage was a walk from Paris to the Chartres Cathedral. Now, that is about 65 miles.
Okay.
I don't know the kilometers. I don't care. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so the first day, like she said, it was great. They had the French Boy Scouts out there with them. They were all like they were going. They were practically running. They went like 17, 18 miles the first day. She said they stopped to eat and everything about her hurt. She's like, I didn't know my hair could hurt. You know?
Yeah.
Like she's making actually a very good presentation. It was actually entertaining to listen to. I've only heard the first 20 minutes. And it's an hour-long thing. So I'm not sure what happens in that next 40 minutes, but I'm going to find out this week. Anyway.
Yeah.
She describes, she was in a group of 20 people. The French Boy Scouts were there with them. And when they stopped, like every Boy Scout was carrying some form of food.
Yeah.
Like some of the guys had bread. Some of them had cheese. Some of them had like meats. One of them had what they call pork butter, which is butter with bits of pork in it.
Okay.
And so she said, I'm looking at it, and I'm like, what do I even do with this? And she said, I look over and my husband is just like double dipping into the pork butter. Like he loves it. Like he knows what he's up for. And so, she's like, so she had a really good time in spite of this torturous walk. And I'm like, what happened in the next 40 minutes?
There had to have been something.
Something had to have, something happened. But from the start of it, like I'm in the, I'm in like the first part of like Dark Crystal with this story where like shit, like bad shit's coming, but some of the shit seems okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Mm-hmm. I don't know. And part of me doesn't want to play the next 40 minutes of that show to myself because I'm like, when did it go wrong?
Yeah.
Right now it's just a mystery, but if it gets unraveled at that conference, now what's really fucked up is I couldn't find a separate audio stream of it, so if I want to use it for the show, it's on YouTube.
Okay.
Anyone who wants to watch it, I'm not going to link it. Well, I might link it in the show notes, but it was Catholics for Catholics. Yeah. Oh my God, that organization. Fuck them people.
Catholics for Catholics?
Yeah, all right. I can tell with your reaction, we're going to have to go through this.
Yeah.
Not today.
Okay.
Not today. Catholics for Catholics is a weird little organization.
Okay.
They have like 3 platforms, and one of them is re-electing President Trump.
Okay. I just thought of an instantly better organization that could probably generate some money, and I hate myself a little bit.
Yeah.
CAF, as in the baby cow.
Okay.
CAF Licks for Catholics, where you bring baby cows to like Catholic parties for kids to like pet and shit.
Oh, that is a better charity, especially if they're vegans.
Exactly.
Because the kids can be like, "Oh, baby cow," and you'd be like, "Yeah, see, this is why we don't eat them."
Yeah.
Because they're fluffy. You give it a good blow dry, so it's got all the floof, and then you send it out. Back into this roller coaster. Back into this roller coaster. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the next clip.
Sorry, could you say there appeared to be some documentation?
Et en accumulant de la documentation, nous sommes...
Yes, as we accumulated documents and evidence, we saw that it didn't match the story of Brigitte Macron. At the time, there was an intense campaign by the media to promote Emmanuel Macron as a candidate against the right wing, and they were really promoting the character of Brigitte Macron as well. However, every time her story was told, inconsistencies kept emerging. The narrative in 2019 was that they had an age difference of 20 years and that she was Emmanuel Macron's French professor, yet a very gorgeous and beautiful woman, and that all the students were in love with her. This initial narrative that there is an age difference of 19 years, instead of incurring blame, the media stated Emmanuel Macron was almost of legal age.
He actually was. The age of consent in France, as we've said many times, is 15. They met when he was 15. Just because it is illegal in America and other countries, guess what? France is a whole other country. I would think Poussard would be aware of this fact.
He was presented as this virile, promising, aspiring young man who was charming and seductive to this beautiful woman, and who had the right stuff to be head of state.
The French people certainly thought so. Twice.
Even with just that narrative, the age difference, it's very strange to think that the media would not have further questions, and yet they sort of presented this couple as a love story, a modern love story of a woman who left her family because she fell so in love with a student. But then you were able to determine that even the ages that they were presenting to the public were not correct of when they fell in love. Is that right?
A senior journalist in French public television wrote a book proposing and confronting all the narratives about how they met. This included information that Brigitte Macron had been his theater professor, not his French professor, and that he was in fact 14 and she 39 when they initially met.
Donc en fait,
So in essence, it was a case of an adult involved with a minor.
Jesus. So, okay. Brigitte was a teacher at the private school Emmanuel Macron attended. She taught both French and drama, which even in America is pretty fucking common.
Yeah.
The drama teachers that ran school plays at every school I ever attended were also, most of the time, English/grammar teachers. Further investigation by me on Emmanuel Macron's age, when his school year started, when they would have met, put Emmanuel at 15 years old. He turned 15 in December of 1992, and they met in September of 1993. Again, not illegal and not what he is making up.
ensuite, on s'apercevait.
After having gathered all published photos of Brigitte Macron, we concluded that there was no clear continuum of her physical appearance throughout the years.
Ensuite, la presse a
The press touted many members of the Trogneau family, Brigitte's family, to the French electorate, comparing them to the Kennedys, and not just a family of chocolate makers from Amiens, north of Paris. All the biographies published emphasized the members of the family, for the simple fact that Macron is a technocrat. So to balance this, the media was selling an image of a family which was really grounded in the country, grounded in real France.
Mais le problème, c'est
Even with all this, we discovered that there was one brother, Jean-Michel Trogneau, who did not appear in any of the biographies.
What biographies? I looked into this because I wanted to read at least a Google translated version of these biographies. There are none. I tried different search engines, including 2 good AI-based ones. He is making this shit up as well. The Trogneau family likes quietly running their celebrated chocolate business. Just more bullshit.
I asked all my contacts, do you have anything on Brigitte? And in particular, one of my contacts, who is a civil servant, looked at me with a grin and said, "He's a man." Well, if this is true, then who is this man? So the official biographies should be rewritten. One of my contacts told me about Natasha Ray, a journalist who was able to explain and establish that Brigitte is a man. I contacted this Natasha Ray, and it turned out she was not a journalist, just a concerned citizen who, like me and like others, had asked questions about Brigitte Macron and who had compiled evidence and had started from the hypothesis that it was a man. While looking at the material, she had found in the family photo a little boy who was this hidden brother whom I had already identified but hadn't yet matched a face to, and who was indeed Jean-Michel Trogneau. So we agreed that I would publish her findings in this investigation.
Yeah, as I said near the start of this, Ray was not a journalist, and she still isn't a journalist. And the story has changed between the two as to who contacted whom for this story. The most consistent one I could find is that she reached out to Poussard.
Wow. And just so my audience is clear, Natasha Ray is the one that the media is trying to present as the person who published the document. She is the one that is currently being sued. We're going to discuss the actual reason she's being sued for.
It bears repeating that the French legal codes are different from America. For one thing, Ray wrote the story. 2, French laws make it harder to pursue people like Poussard for things his reporters write. And the nature of this has made it difficult for Macron and Trogneau to pursue him directly. For that reason, as well as others, he isn't being sued for libel yet.
But Xavier Poussard is not being sued for libel in France whatsoever. So you start to gather these documents and you start to realize the picture's coming together. And I just want to say, for me, one of the things that I encourage my audience to do is believe their eyes. And as soon as I saw that there were really only 2 photos that were ever presented as a young Brigitte Macron, the first photo being the one that we're going to show right now, it was very obvious to me that Brigitte looked like the person on the left in the family photo. And this is the first photo that we see. We're told that Brigitte is the person that's sitting on her mother's lap, but it's very clear to me that Brigitte looks exactly like the person on the left. And that was before I read the Jean-Michel Trogneau thesis. And then they presented this second photo, which is very clearly a recolorized photo, which looks exactly like Brigitte's daughter, who he fathered, Typhon. And I just thought it was amazing that they were trying to pass off these fake photos, which is bizarre. So
I have no idea what article she's on at that point. I read the original article that she referenced from the Daily Mail. There are photos of Brigitte with her daughter as an adult. Candace is full of shit as usual.
Oh, the legend, as you were just explaining, is that, they fell in love when they were in school. It was lovely. Things went on. Brigitte's from a small town in Amiens. Her family were in the chocolate industry. You read this biography, you start realizing none of this is real. What did you do? What did your paper, rather, that you presented to the public discover or not discover about Jean-Michel Trogneau? Who is Jean-Michel Trogneau?
Alors d'abord sur la photo de Tiphaine, sur la photo présentée comme la communiante.
First, on the photo of Tiphaine as the communicant, we cross-referenced this photo. Now, this photo is indeed Brigitte Trogneau, and this is where it becomes interesting. It is a fact that Jean-Michel Trogneau is an individual who calls himself Brigitte and has assumed the identity of his younger sister, Brigitte Trogneau.
He says it with such confidence, doesn't he?
I was gonna say, not only the confidence, but it's the his translator doesn't sound like they've got very much confidence in anything being said, but no, the assuming the identity of younger sister Brigitte Trogneau, and it's almost as if Brigitte Trogneau actually exists.
Yeah.
And, might be taking the last name of Macron now.
Right.
It's...
Well, he says it like it's a fact. Like he's French Alex Jones or Tucker Swanson Carlson.
Swan.
Yeah, that's his middle name, yeah. Yeah, okay, Tucker Carlson. Famously not a man of the people. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You've probably never seen, I still see them. They are a bigger deal here than they were back in Florida. Swanson is a frozen food company that makes home deliveries. They've been doing this for a long time. They have their own refrigerated trucks that they use to make home deliveries.
I think I've seen the trucks, yeah.
Okay. Part of Tucker's family's money comes from Swanson. Yeah, that's not his middle name. That is his last name. His last name is hyphenated for his family's name. Tucker Swanson Carlson.
What the
I don't remember what his middle name is.
Why in the fuck?
But the Swanson Carlson bit always sticks out, yeah.
Why not just... Okay. Did he get married and take his wife's name and so he's doing like a maiden name?
No. His wife's name could easily be whatever her name is, whatever her last name was, Swanson Carlson. Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Why not just say your name's Tucker Swanson or Tucker Carlson?
Well, he is Tucker Carlson. But I like to put the whole thing in there just to remind myself that he's a rich douche that grew up with a lot of money.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But yeah, that entire lie is why we're here.
Exactly.
I'll summarize my conclusions from this as follows. The girl in white, the communicant, is Brigitte Trogneau. The central problem is that Brigitte, this so-called Brigitte, is not Brigitte Trogneau. It's her brother, Jean-Michel Trogneau. As soon as we started working with Natasha, she was immediately taken into custody and detained in a police station for this investigation. At the time, we did not have enough evidence, and so we relayed her hypothesis, which was partially false since we didn't have all the evidence. After the publication of these documents, all the proceedings in the trial against Natasha Ray target a video that she made herself on the channel of a clairvoyant.
So, he actually admits that they ran the story without all of the facts in place, but then alludes that they had documents, which they do not have, and have never had, because this claim has no proof.
And actually, all the prosecutions are based on inaccuracies, which are due to the fact that Natasha Ray is not a journalist and not well versed in media rules and regulations. So after the first phase in 2021...
So you're telling me that as a publisher, he didn't bother to run any of her paper through any of his censors to make sure that everything was fit and right to actually be legally printed and documented for the people of France to read?
Yes.
What kind of fucking newspaper does this... I mean, I know it's a shit rag, but still.
It's a shit rag. It's a shit rag that has very low circulation because it is a members-only shit rag.
You should still... you should more so than be running everything that you're given through your censors to make sure that everything is legally presentable. That way it's not fucking flagged by the law and getting your writers fucking thrown in jail.
Yeah. It's going to get worse. Yeah, so, why run it at all?
Yeah.
Right? If it is coming from someone green to the entire process, they came to you with a stunning lack of credible proof, just opinions about photos, why even entertain this, if not to try to disrupt the lives of innocent people?
From 2022 up until 2024, we continued our investigation, and we were able to collect 5 exclusive photos of Jean-Michel Trogneau from the past.
Nope. They were caught and called out by French reporters for using photoshopped images with a makeup app. Yeah, they used Reface or whatever the fuck.
So they didn't even bother to run it through, like, somebody that was actually good at doing Photoshop and, making everything look clean and crispy.
I mean, they might have, but it's still, they were called out for it.
Yeah.
Like, because these things do have certain, tells.
Yeah.
Like perfect teeth and that kind of thing, when someone doesn't have perfect teeth. Yeah. Jean-Michel Trogneau has expressed desire to be kept out of the press, and in France, they actually give a shit. about that kind of request from non-public figures.
All incoherence, proving that Brigitte Macron is Jean-Michel Trogneau, and we were able to recover and compile 4 exclusive photos of Brigitte Trogneau. Of course, these are not of the public-facing Brigitte Macron.
Donc, pour résumer,
from these, the age difference is actually greater. Initially, he was 17 years old and met someone who was 36.
No, that has never been claimed. The story from the jump has been that he was 15, which is a provable fact, and met her when she was 39. They have a 24-year age difference. But this is how easily he just lies. The difference in age between Brigitte and Jean-Michel is about 7 years. This is why he will say the following.
Then 14 and 39 respectively. But it is in fact a 14-year-old boy who initially met someone aged 47.
Wow.
This case is clearly about the abuse of a minor, as well as impersonation or identity theft. I'm not looking at this from a moral perspective, but rather from a legal one. In my newspaper, our methodology is a time-tested and solid one. We accumulate evidence and cross-reference it, so I assert to the public that Brigitte Macron is a man named Jean-Michel Trogneau, who was born on February 11th, 1945.
Sorry, give me that date again. 11th of February, 1945. Of February 1945. And I just want to clarify. So you are saying that the legend, which was sold to the public, that a 17-year-old boy or young man fell in love with his 34, 36-year-old teacher is fictitious.
In this case specifically, yes, it is a fiction. In another part of the world, maybe it's true. But as we've said, 15 is the age of consent in France. And Brigitte Trogneau, or whatever her last name was at the time, I do not remember. She was married. It wasn't Trogneau. But as we've said, 15 is the age of consent in France, and she was 39.
So,
Uh-huh.
I know you said it's just how easily he lies, but he
Yeah.
just went from saying one moment that
That they didn't do due diligence, and then he said that we always do due diligence.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God.
It's so easy when you don't have to actually say the truth.
And the truth is that Emmanuel Macron was only 14 years old, and Brigitte Macron was how old? Are you saying 47?
47. Si, 47.
So she was 47 years old when they met. So in this case, it was roughly 6 years before Brigitte met Emmanuel Macron when he was 14 that she, Jean-Michel Trogneau, in reality, started to live with her sister's identity.
Huh? I think what he is saying is that she had lived for 6 years as Brigitte, which is false, because she has been Brigitte since she was named shortly after her birth.
6 years before, used a fake identity. Wow, explosive. So, one of the things that I found very interesting was this story to me is such a huge story that when I actually read through your documents and saw all of the proof, it's undeniable that Brigitte Macron was born a man. And yet, when you presented it to the public, and similarly, when I presented it to the public, I would think the media would jump on this and begin their own investigations, but instead, the media attacked it as a lie and as a conspiracy theory. How were you treated when you published the documents? I mean, and by the way, I just want to say, unbelievable that the state detained Natasha Ray before you had even published it. But once you did publish it, what happened in France?
Alors la réaction a été...
The reaction was immediate. First, Natasha was detained for a day on the presumption of a misdemeanor, and it was probably because my cell phone was tapped.
Yeah, okay. Ray was not detained on a misdemeanor. She was detained based on the need to question her about this libelous conduct, which is similar to being a felony in America. It can carry a prison term of up to a year per conviction.
My webmaster was also arrested in France, but I was not, as I was careful not to be in France at the time. After the publication of the first part of the investigation in 2021, all of our companies underwent a tax audit, the usual harassment procedure. There was a tax control on my companies, and once this case was published by Natasha and her psychic, all my bank accounts, personal and professional, were closed without explanation.
So I did a search for the webmaster of Face Documents, and it came up empty. And there was no publicly available information on a tax audit having been performed. Given his track record so far, I don't trust him to have been truthful on his tax forms. And it is interesting how badly he wants to distance himself from the story by saying that he was careful to be out of France at the time.
You're telling me this motherfucker knew, or had a feeling, that something was going to happen, and so decided to
Dip out.
And leave his fucking web guy there?
If he has one.
Why would you fuck over a bro like that?
He not only left him there, he knew that it was libelous.
Yeah.
So he escaped the country. He has not been in France since this was published 3 years ago.
See,
He has been living in Italy.
my brain just went to something that, what is it you say? Don't attribute something that stupid would do or something.
Yeah,
like that.
never attribute to stupid, or never attribute to evil what stupid explains. Yeah. Something like that. Yeah,
which comes to it feels like he probably just went yeah whatever, waved it through, and then somebody went sir, we just published it. I need to leave France. Hey,
you, gas up my car, please.
Yeah. We still have that Italy residence, right? Good.
Yeah. I imagine that a guy like this had a go bag of money.
It's
just in case his accounts got frozen.
Because that's honestly what it feels like, him admitting to that.
Yeah.
And me thinking about it for a second is just, did he just wave it through, not thinking about it, look at it the next day and go, I need to go now.
It gets worse.
Oh, God.
So, further bullshit scraping on his claims revealed no other involvement in any other companies or ownership, past or present, of any companies within or outside the border of France. I feel comfortable calling this a set of lies as well. I wouldn't be surprised if he was actually outside of France when the story was already published. I wouldn't be shocked, and this is just me thinking out loud, I wouldn't be shocked if he was already expecting a tax audit and ran the story as cover.
Mm.
That's just supposition, but I'm not putting it outside the realm of possibility. Candace then goes into an ad for 7 weeks copy. We're skipping it, diving right back in.
Okay, so just to get that clear, so I want to make sure I get this right. So Natasha Ray was then immediately detained for a day, and then they launched a tax investigation on who?
All my bank accounts, professional and private, were closed.
Wow.
And there was a strange ambiance in this case, a French ambiance in this case. For example, a journalist in Liberal of Lopes, which is a weekly publication of the group Le Monde, it's like the New York Times. It's a liberal left woman who said, okay, this is fake news. And first of all the pieces she discovered arrived at the same conclusion we had. Mm-hmm. And then she was followed by the Secret Service in a hostel where she had a meeting with Natasha.
Yeah, also no. I had to do some digging, but here's what happened. Natasha Ray was contacted by the journalist he carefully avoided naming, and she works for the publication Europe's. Her name is Emmanuelle Anazon, and she wrote a book about the conspiracy theory involving Brigitte Macron. She contacted Ray for several months to try to get an interview, and her focus was not to throw Ray under the bus more than had already been done, but she wanted to understand how this would even come up. Reviewers for the work said she didn't try to persuade Ray away from the whole thing, since Ray seems to sincerely believe it. She only wanted to try to wrap her own head around the whole thing. According to the sources I found, she also spoke with Poussard about it as well. He lied when he said that the French Secret Service got involved, and he lied when he said that the journalist was convinced of the claims. Anazol was not convinced at any stage. If anyone is so inclined, they can read the book for themselves, and I'll be linking to where I found it on Amazon in the show notes. It is under L'Affaire Madame, Anatomie d'une fake news. And the entire link is there. It is about $30, and I think it's only available in print, but have at it, Internet. I have not looked it up. Maybe somebody put it up on Internet Archive. I honestly have no idea. Moving on.
So, it was a very strange thing. It's like in your United States with big corporations. In Paris, there's an expression that says, Brigitte is untouchable. And in fact, one humorist who was on national TV in France was fired for saying Brigitte was abusing and oppressing a student because Brigitte and the government just have so much power. And a lot of journalists are afraid to cover this case. And due to the nature of the case, it involving a minor and abuse, many people aren't comfortable pursuing it.
I couldn't find any information related to this saying or mention of any humorist fired for this. And as I will keep saying, their relationship was legal. Weird to us, but legal. No one in France wants to touch it because it's bullshit.
Yeah.
And also, there's a thing in France. You know how we have it's completely wrong, of course. But there's sort of like a daddy fantasy in this culture of like,
yeah,
not necessarily girls glomming onto their fathers, but like younger women kind of having the hots for like an older man.
Yeah.
That's a thing.
Yeah.
You know, people see like a 42-year-old guy with an 18-year-old woman and they're like, oh, that's gross. Well, that's their relationship. And if they're adults, I have nothing to say about that.
Yeah.
You know, and would I do that? Probably not. That seems annoying. Mm-hmm. Why would you date someone that can't at least legally drink with you?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, there's little, you know, there's little things. Would you, you know, are you gonna go out with someone that looks like they could literally be your daughter?
I think that's where it enters a realm of like slight creepiness. Of,
yeah, you know, I mean, some people are perfectly happy that way, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Again, my opinion does not enter into their lives.
No.
In France, it's a bit of a flip around.
Okay.
Older women with younger dudes is actually socially acceptable. It's weird for some folks, but it's also seen as a socially acceptable thing.
Okay.
You know, a bit like being a sugar mama here.
Yeah.
There's not much difference there. There's sort of an appeal for younger men with older women. Again, it's the French.
Yeah.
It's not the culture I live in. I'm not going to pass any judgment. You know, but I couldn't find any information related to this saying or mention of any humorist fired for this. So, that's that. Then we get into...
There are multiple theories around Macron. You could say it's a pedophile network with a lot of people in France involved in these crimes. For example, the French Department of Justice is run by Eric Dupont-Moretti, who is a lawyer famous for the Procès du Trois case, where 12 children were victims of sex crimes, but he got all the accused abusers off and they are now free.
Mm-hmm.
This man cannot go 30 seconds without lying. I looked into this and it was a significant case in France. Here are some of the details. It started in 1997 and ran until 2005. Initially, 40 adults were accused by 50 children that were possible victims. At the end of the investigations, those numbers were chopped down to 12 children and 17 adults. Of those 17 adults, 10 were convicted and sentenced. An appeal trial took place in 2005. 6 of those 10 were acquitted. This whole thing ended with only 4 convictions at the end, which was 2 couples. The acquitted received apologies from President Jacques Chirac and received compensation for the time spent in prison and the damage done to their lives. One of the accused died after 17 months in pretrial detention. A commission of inquiry was developed in the aftermath to see what went wrong and tighten the way the laws worked in France so as to avoid innocent people getting caught up in such a procedure again. While the man he mentions was involved with some of the clients, he was known as a great defense lawyer. And it's worth noting that of the people acquitted, none have been arrested since for this. None of them have been repeat offenders, if they were ever offenders to begin with. And of course, Candace goes right along with the lies as if she has any idea what he's talking about, or she only knows the version he is selling. Either way, it's bullshit. Basically, they were saying that it was a pedophile ring.
Yeah.
And that, it was one of the things they were able to point out in the investigations, into the investigations, was that the investigators were leading the kids on with questions.
Okay.
Which gave them false...
positives.
Yeah, well, false statements.
Oh, yeah, false statements.
Yeah, and due to those false statements, 50 adults were swept up. Or 40 adults were swept up because of 50 kids. But then as it pared down for the court process, it came down to those final numbers of 17 adults and 12 kids. And then it went down further to 2 couples.
Yeah.
Which is a vast difference. 4 people is 10% of the people that were initially roped up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It probably would have been, it could have been 5 if the one guy hadn't died, or he could have gotten off.
Yeah.
I think the way that the stories after the fact were written, he would have gotten off.
Okay.
But he was in pretrial detention for 17 months.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
The other thing about the lawyer...
Yeah.
When he brings up the fact that, this lawyer was involved in that case.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know what the continuation on it is, but the mentioning of any lawyer being involved in a case, I always feel like it's probably got some good fucking money on it. Like,
yeah.
Whenever somebody goes, oh, you shouldn't trust, such and such lawyer because they get murderers off. Are they a defender primarily?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, and how many murderers a year do they supposedly get off? Several. All right. If I commit a crime, I know who to call. Thank you.
Well, that's the thing is that there's some very good things. Some very normal things I've read among defense attorneys. One is that I've read that they do not ask their clients if they're guilty.
Yeah.
They go in assuming they're innocent, and that's the position they work from.
Yeah.
Because, it's harder to mount a defense if you suspect your client is guilty.
Yeah.
But if you go into it thinking, yes, I'm getting paid, but so what if this guy's a little weird? I don't think he's got the chops to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Or if the client is straight up about, yeah, I did it, but I still need a defense because I don't want the chair and I don't want to spend 80 years of my life in prison. Help me out.
Yeah.
If they're like, yeah, look, the evidence is real. It's stacked against me. There's nothing I can do. Get me the best deal possible.
Yeah.
That's another thing too, is that, a competent defense attorney can usually get their client away from death penalty.
Yeah.
To which most of these guys would probably be like, I don't want to spend 50 years in prison, but it beats seeing that electric chair in 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, this guy had a hell of a record. Anyway, he's in the French government these days.
Okay.
And that's why he had come up. And then we get...
Another example was an incest case where he obtained plea deals for the defendants and really advocated for organized crime groups and these pedophile networks. And there's a lot of people like this around Macron. For example, Jack Long, who is the chair of the Arab World Institute, was involved in the Epstein case. You must remember that when Epstein was arrested in New York, he was invited to France to attend the 30th anniversary of the Louvre Pyramid by Long, with all the French establishment in attendance.
Epstein and Jack Long, spelled L-A-N-G, they were on friendly terms. But unlike Trump, Jack Long wasn't on any of Epstein's flight logs. Epstein donated about $57,000 to a French nonprofit for the making of a movie, but according to Politico, the nonprofit's status as an actual organization is questionable. As for the Louvre visit he mentioned at the end of the clip, that happened 4 months before Epstein's arrest in New York, which is when the wider world got to know the man for real.
You must also recall that Ghislaine Maxwell is originally from France, so is Jean-Luc Brunel. So there is an aura of pedophilia surrounding those in power in France under Macron and under Brigitte Macron, and all the journalists know, but they don't say anything because they're afraid to lose their jobs.
Yes, and it's incredible that there is this exact same thing happening in America right now. I mean, they fully attacked me for exposing a similar pedophile network of power that is happening here in America.
Lies.
And I know that I messaged you and I was explaining this to you, that it is so strange that even when you say, hey, it's very weird that they keep protecting pedophiles, you start to realize that the media, which we refer to as the establishment media, you refer to it as corporate media, are quite literally employed to protect pedophiles in power and to ruin the lives of any independent journalists who risk everything to tell the public. I want to ask you, Xavier, because there was something very interesting in your article pertaining to Emmanuel Macron. Now, my theory
wasn't his article
is that it is very plausible that they are putting pedophiles and their victims into positions of power so that they can control them all across the world. I believe that they are putting pedophiles in power. And I was very compelled by your investigation into Emmanuel Macron's childhood. Now, the legend holds that he was raised by his grandmother and didn't have a very close relationship with his biological parents. Am I correct in stating that his grandmother worked at a trans clinic at some point, or Emmanuel Macron's family worked at a trans clinic? Can you elaborate on that?
First of all, we don't know much about Macron. He grew up with his grandmother, and the house they lived in is now closed. It's very strange. There's no photos that exist of Macron with his parents before the age of 25. What we discovered is that a woman named Françoise Nogues, who was presented as the mother of Emmanuel Macron, was in charge of a medical program for transgender people in France.
Okay, so I let that one run long because of the bit at the end. Macron's mother, Françoise, was a doctor in Amiens, but she did not work at a trans clinic. She was a general practitioner that wound up retiring as a medical administrator at the Amiens version of the Social Security Agency. Neither of Emmanuel Macron's grandmothers worked in a trans clinic, nor his grandfathers, nor his father. This is all easy to research, but that isn't about to stop him from lying a lot more.
This information was never in the newspapers, and there are testimonies that we found where transgender people are thanking Françoise Nogues for this program. And the strange point here is, when we researched the life of Jean-Michel Trogneux with Brigitte, we found that they're connected to Emmanuel Macron. All of these elements are very strange, and we must remember that Macron, before he was president, he was a banker at Rothschilds & Co. but he doesn't have the qualifications to be a banker.
Yeah.
A colleague of his said that it is peculiar that he became the youngest associate. In the report, we see that Brigitte Macron is very close with David de Rothschild, like family. He is the godfather of Macron. And you have to remember that David de Rothschild is the president of the World Jewish Congress. So it's for this reason that whenever anyone brings up Brigitte Macron and pedophilia, they are accused of anti-Semitism.
Yeah, baby.
So he's accusing the Jewish bankers of letting air quotations trans-loving president before he was president, a trans-loving groomed man into a executive position at a young age, right? That's what he's saying.
That's part of it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, my question is, well, why did this all boil down to a Jewish banker?
Oh my God, we're gonna take a trip, man.
Also, why are you going after the Jews for being bankers?
Okay, so let's focus a little bit on what he said there. So all that shit about trans folks specifically thanking Dr. Macron are bullshit.
Oh, I was about to say Talifang. I don't know.
No. They thanked her along with non-trans folks because she was a good doctor. She retired. People were like, she was great.
Yeah.
She's still alive. Still healthy.
Oh, that's good.
She's like 73 or something. Moving on. David de Rothschild is not Emmanuel Macron's godfather. Until Emmanuel Macron sought out a job at Rothschild's bank, they had no connection. This stuff wouldn't be seen as an anti-Semitic trope if anti-Semites didn't keep pulling the fucking lever. Anyway, Macron got a job with Rothschild through a mutual friend, Francois Henrot. Old school networking.
Yeah.
Now,
it's almost as if he went to a rich boys school. Didn't he?
Yeah.
Where rich boys usually get to know each other and network with each other from a young age.
Yeah.
So that way when they're both at the point of getting jobs.
And when he's like, oh yeah, all these, you see all these things happening in Amiens. Yes, because Macron lived in Amiens. Brigitte lived in Amiens, where her family ran a fucking chocolate factory.
In Amiens.
Where his family lived.
In Amiens.
Yeah.
And presumably his friend that helped him get a job at Rothschild lived in Amiens.
And they were buddies in college and shit. Yeah.
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 See, that's even more. So they were buddies in fucking college. Of course he helped him get a fucking job at a banking
because
place.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
God. Yeah. It's going to get dumber.
I feel like he was unpopular in school, and that's his problem.
Yeah. So, moving on with what he was saying.
For example, you, Candace, are accused of this. Zoe Sagon, who is a Twitter account who helped me publish this case, was banned after pressure from Jewish organizations. And during a radio show, I gave a list to the owner of a French media outlet, and France called Italy to bring accusations of anti-Semitism. 3 hours ago, a list appeared in a left-leaning paper called Le Monde Diplomatique, and it's an official list that says, Rupert Murdoch, Fox News, you are an anti-Semite. It makes no sense. The question is, why is everyone who pursues this case of Macron being labeled as an anti-Semite?
Probably because they all happen to be anti-Semitic, dude. Yeah, but also, he was talking out of his ass again because no such list exists in the public. This clip that follows is less than 9 seconds long.
The answer is very simple. It is because David de Rothschild is the godfather of Macron and the president of the World Jewish Congress.
He repeated a lie I called out in the last clip. The World Jewish Congress, by the way, has been helmed since 2007 by Ronald S. Lauder. David de Rothschild has never been at the lead.
I just heard Lauda in your
Lauda.
In your Jewish the Jewish grandmother voice you do.
Ronald S. Lauda. He's a good boy. He's a good little Lauda. We love him so much. He gives all the little kids shekels. Shekels is a fun word. God, I'd love to use it for money, but I don't want people to think that I'm... Ugh. Anyway, next.
And if you look at the Epstein case, there is a financial structure to support their operation. It's a mega group created by Leslie Wexner and Edgar Bronfman, who was the chairman of the World Jewish Congress at the time. And the documents, the Austrian passport that the FBI found at Epstein's house, were a gift from Ronald Lauder, who helped Epstein in his case, and later became the president of the World Jewish Congress. You can see that it was this organization that called the Epstein case a controlled accident, and which Putin called a collective accident with blackmail on people who are really puppets and do what they're told because they don't want their private lives shown to the public.
This is fascinating, and it's fascinating because the fact that you are now being accused of anti-Semitism for a piece that you wrote 3 years ago, and in reality what you're trying to do today is to expose a pedophile ring.
So, Hoffman was never involved with the World Jewish Congress. Hoffman and Wexner were familiar with Epstein at different periods. Wexner dropped Epstein like a hot rock when allegations on him first surfaced in 2007, and Hoffman had dealings with him after that. Lauder issued Epstein an Austrian passport, which was something he did regularly as the American ambassador to Austria through his office in 1987, effectively 20 years before his first allegation was made public. As for the bit at the end that Candace is rolling into, Poussard has long been accused of being anti-Semitic for printing this kind of unprovable shit that he was talking about, often about people that live outside of France like himself. He ran away to Italy while the story was being published and Natasha Ray was being arrested and sued. This story has nothing to do with anti-Semitism on the surface, but he'll tell you it does because reasons. And now, like a good alt-right show host, Candace is going to loop this back to her own brand of bullshit.
And to know that that is exactly what is happening to me only reaffirms my belief that what we have right now is a pedophile ring that has assumed a ton of power in the world by pretending that any person that notices this pedophile ring is an anti-Semite. My theory is that these people are not Jewish. I think that they have, they publicly present themselves as being Jewish, but in reality, they worship and follow an entirely different faith, and it's satanic. That is why I have encouraged my listeners to learn who Jacob Frank was, to learn what Frankism was, because that never went away, and it came to America. And when these pedophiles get caught, they say, oh, I'm Jewish, this is blood libel, this is blood libel. And it's so important for Jewish people to wake up and to understand that this is not blood libel, this is not anti-Semitism. These are demonic, monstrous people.
Now, this is where Candace is slightly smarter than this douchebag. She doesn't often name names.
No, not living ones anyway.
Right? She is fond of saying this line of bullshit, but almost never says a name that would get her in trouble or sued directly.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Boop.
That are using Judaism to hide what their actions are. And it just can't be the case that every person that discovers pedophilia is then accused of anti-Semitism by the very powerful media organ. So I want to ask you about Tafon now, the daughter of Brigitte Macron. because Tefan seems to be the only person in Brigitte's family that will lie for Brigitte. It's very public, Tefan. What is the actual relationship between Tefan and Brigitte? Did Brigitte father Tefan?
No.
Why is Tefan so involved in trying to convince the public that Brigitte is a woman, when it's so obvious that Brigitte was born a man?
First, to finish on this point, you are Catholic, Candace, and you have to remember what is written in the Book of Revelations. They say Jewish, but they're not really Jewish. They are a satanic synagogue. So this text is important.
Welcome to another anti-Semitic trope that Candace is fond of using. There are 2 verses in the Book of Revelation that mention a satanic synagogue or similar among Jewish communities, and they are verses 2:9 and 3:9, referring specifically to churches in Smyrna and Philadelphia. This is directed at those churches in that time and has fuck all to do with anything else. And Candace should know this, since John of Patmos insisted that the Book of Revelation, which the Catholic Church holds as divine canon, is meant to be entirely understood as fact, not as allegory. After saying that shit, he rolls right into...
Stephanie Azier is the niece of Brigitte.
Azier,
She's
that's the old
daughter
name.
of Brigitte Trogneau, and legally she is the niece of Jean-Michel Trogneau. They didn't change the story, it's just misdirection. When I studied the Epstein case, they used a lot of misdirection, like when you watch something by David Copperfield. It seems to be very complex, but at the end, it's a very simple thing. It was just a switch in identities. In the mid-80s, a brother takes the identity of his sister. That's it. Then we observed something strange about Tiffany Azier. She was a lawyer in the north of France, and when we pursued this case, she suddenly wrote a book and became a writer and increased her social status. And her sister, who was a renowned cardiologist in Paris, suddenly became a contemporary artist in the style of Jeff Koons. She has associated her art with Jacques Long, who is friends with Macron, and was friends with Epstein. It's the same Jacques Long we mentioned earlier was connected to these famous pedophilia cases in France. Her social status is also increasing.
All right, guys.
Yeah, Candace rolled into another ad after that, but here's the truth. Tefan wrote a novel. Big fucking deal. It's done well, and good for her. She is also a lawyer by trade and well regarded. Good for her. Laurence is not an artist, not even on the side. She is a cardiologist and well regarded and was a classmate of Emmanuel Macron.
Okay.
Yeah. The unmentioned child of the 3 is her son, Sebastian, who is the oldest and is a statistical engineer. Among the 3 of them, they have 7 kids.
What is a statistical engineer?
What's it?
What's a statistical engineer?
I don't know.
Okay.
But that's what he does.
All right.
Yeah. I assume it's mathy.
It's probably more math than an engineer already does.
Yeah. Skipping past the ad read, we get...
Yeah, it's very strange. And so your belief is that the sister, the real Brigitte, which we see again in that family photo, sitting on the lap, which looks nothing like Jean-Michel Trogneau and nothing like Brigitte Macron, do you believe that Brigitte Ozier is still alive?
This is why I think this case is a difficult one, because it's about a family secret. You have the Trogneau family, who is very important in the town of Amiens, and then there's the Ozier family, who are very important in the French intelligence community. I called a lot of people in the families about this, and nobody wants to comment on it. No journalist wants to write a book uncovering this secret or investigating these families. It's very strange.
No, it isn't. Because they aren't involved in French intelligence. Maybe no one wants to cover a boring rich family that does boring rich family things when there are actual criminals in the world and actual bad shit happening. Candace is now past his bullshit, I think, because she's using this to talk past what he just said with her own garbage.
There also seems to be an element here, and of course in my research of learning about what the Frankist satanic cult believed in, was incest, and a word known as apostasy. Well, apostasy meaning that you convert into other religions falsely, so you pretend to be Muslim, you pretend to be Christian, you pretend to be Jewish, but in reality...
No. This is not even close to what apostasy is. I actually went and looked it up in a few sources to make sure that I wasn't going nuts. Apostasy is invoked on people like myself who were previously professed Christians, for example, and either embraced another faith or atheism and fully rejected the faith we once had. This is an applicable term across religions and societies as a complete rejection of what one previously professed a belief in. Heresy is when you are part of a religion, but you think some things could be changed. Martin Luther, for example, was seen as a heretic.
Okay.
That's the difference. Whereas apostasy is completely turning away. A heretic is like, look, not all of this shit is divine.
Yeah.
There's some things that we can change for the better. And from that, the body politic would be like, oh, well, fuck you, you're a heretic.
Yeah.
Again,
if these people were to, play games or do anything like Warhammer 40k, they'd get plenty of, examples of these things.
Well, there's plenty of real-life examples, too, but, this is an applicable term, apostasy, across religions and societies as a complete rejection of what one previously professed a belief in. In some places, it was and still is punishable by death or expulsion, or a term in prison, as has been the case across time and societies. I don't know where the fuck she got that definition of apostasy.
I don't know either.
Maybe from her Hallow app.
I forgot about Hallow.
I wish I could.
reality, what you are is you worship Satan, and they believe in incest. So Jacob Frank had sex with his daughter. I don't know if you know this, but the Frankists first went down into France.
No.
And this Junius Frey was actually Jacob Frank's nephew. I don't know if you knew that. So this religion, Marie Antoinette as well, they were actually Frankists, and they believed in incest and pedophilia. And when I see that picture,
Well, he doesn't know that because it isn't true. Marie Antoinette had no affiliation with Jacob Frank in her very short life. We've said it before, but it bears repeating. And Candace goes on.
brought up earlier, Jean-Jacques. When I look at that picture of him, who you believe was fathered by Jean-Michel Trogneux, he looks like Emmanuel Macron. Jean-Jacques has a facial similarity to Emmanuel Macron. They look like relatives. Do you think that part of the family secret could be incest? Obviously, we're just, theorizing here.
To continue on this point and the background of incest surrounding this case, Brigitte was very close with a man named Olivier Duhamel. He's the president of Le Secret, a secret social club in France that's important to the techno structure. The list of members is of course secret, and the president of Le Secret was involved in an incest scandal and was very close to Brigitte and Macron, a great supporter of them. Recall what we said about the Rothschilds.
He never mentioned that name, Jean-Jacques, that she said. I looked it up, and no such person is involved in any of this. The man shares a surname with the family, but there's no direct public relation. But he is from Amiens, and Trogneux is a common name there. It's just murder board bullshit. Moving on, the name he mentioned, Olivier Duhamel, was involved in a case in 2021 when his stepdaughter publicly accused him of molesting her twin brother in the 1980s in a book she wrote about their family. She apparently had a lot of evidence, and he admitted to it when questioned by police and withdrew from French social shit.
In the Museum of Judaism in Paris, the cousin of David de Rothschild, whose name is Natalia Reims, said, "In our family, we say nice is vice, but incest is best, because it stays in the family."
Et puis comme on faisait très souvent dans ces familles-là, vice is nice, but incest is best, because it stays in the family.
And that's strange. It's an investigation of the morality of the people in France. But remember the film Back to the Future. What happens? He goes to the past and almost seduces his mother. It is a popularized and humorized vice. But it's just another sign of Western decadence.
I could find no evidence of her involvement in the museum, or with David de Rothschild, and I searched various permutations of her name. The clip provided looks like it was shot on a TV show in the 80s or 90s, and her name spelled out in full is not provided. This is just more bullshit. That quote could have been from and about anything, and that quote has shown up in the same wording, but in different ways across European cultures.
Okay.
It's not new, what she said.
Yeah.
And it's not clear the context of it. So for Candace to sit back and use that fucking clip out of context without providing a name is fucking bullshit.
It feels like it falls into that dark humor line of, God. Most recent one that I've seen was that stupid Skeletor meme set that they've been using. Why is reverse cowgirl bad to do with your cousin? Because you never turn your back on family till we meet again.
God.
That's honestly.
Speaking of
that's
Skeletor memes.
Oh God. Yeah.
This is actually good news.
Oh, okay.
There's an account on Mastodon that I follow called Inspirational Skeletor. And it really is inspirational Skeletor memes.
Okay.
It's actually really good. It's when I need a pick-me-up, I go there because there's over 1,000. The guy just cranks them out.
Jesus.
You could spend a few days away and come back and have several solid minutes of reading material. Just do an infinite scroll, you know. Mm-hmm. But yeah, inspirational Skeletor memes on Mastodon is a good read. It really is. But yeah, that quote could have been from and about anything. And then we get into.
This is very scary stuff, and it seems that there is sort of an awakening happening where people are starting to recognize that something more sinister is going on. And of course, a recent example of that was just the Olympics. It does seem that they're trying to almost now indoctrinate the entire world into their satanic faith. And it like I said, it is my belief that this is a synagogue of Satan. Like you mentioned, it is biblical. It mentions this. People who are pretending to be Jews, but are in fact people that worship Satan. And it seems like a very small, incredibly powerful group of elites. And I can trace this through to Australia, to Switzerland, to France, to America, to Canada, and it explains why it is the circumstance that all of these world leaders that we have, even President Zelensky, all seem to be homosexual. Obviously, their relationships are not real. Emmanuel Macron had, when he got elected, a young man who came out and said that he had slept with Emmanuel Macron. And he said that he was a psychopath, that Emmanuel Macron was a psychopath. Well, in my research, I learned that psychologists were interested in how to create a psychopath. And one thing that they discovered was that if you rape a child, the chances are that they will have psychopathic tendencies when they're older.
This is dangerous for a lot of reasons, and almost entirely without merit. For one thing, the man that said he had been Macron's boyfriend was found to be lying. Second, while studies were done to see if psychopaths could be created, and certainly serial killers and prisoners have contributed to the study of criminology, No direct and provable method exists to create a psychopath, as it were. In fact, a lot of survivors of childhood sexual abuse, with or without therapy, go on to lead normal lives and often are more empathetic to the needs of others because they know what it is like to be violated and they don't want to spread that shit. It's fucked up because we know that Candace has a fascist outlook. And fascists, using this outlook, would likely call for the killing or expulsion of children that had been violated because of future problems they could bring to society. She also thinks that psychology exists not to heal people, but to shield pedophiles. Well, if that's the case, then there is no path forward for the damaged people. At that point, I think a fascist like Candace would do anything but have those people growing up in her society. Naturally, it follows that if people are going to be victimized further by the state for reporting abuse, then they would just report it less often, knowing the risk it would bring them or their loved ones. And we can see analogs of this in societies where women cannot report a rape without risking being stoned to death.
Will develop this neurosis and that they will become psychopathic. And this is one of the elements that the French public realized about Emmanuel Macron, that he seemed to be almost psychopathic and angry when COVID happened. Like Emmanuel Macron liked to inflict pain on the public.
I think that the group which runs the West have to promote psychopathic goals because once they go away, there is only world war to maintain power. So they have to promote these dangerous psychopathic personalities and figures. And all the media narratives are the inverse. I don't mean that they're fake or false, but they are the opposite. In France, people are normal. You are Catholic, you have a family, but there are lunatics in the media. For example, a magazine with the cover featuring Melania Trump doesn't appear, and she's just a normal woman. But Brigitte has tons of covers.
Because in France, she is the First Lady of France, you douche canoe.
Yeah.
Oh my fucking God. Alright, the good news is that we are very near the end.
Well, that's good.
But this bullshit made me scream. Melania Trump, from Slovenia, even after she was no longer First Lady in America, has been a regular fixture on French fashion covers. And of course, Brigitte is on multiple covers often because she is the current First Lady of France.
Yeah.
This is fucking ridiculous.
It's... God. This... It'd be like somebody in Britain going, oh yes, we don't have, so-and-so on the covers very much, but we have the Queen's face still plastered on every magazine here. Right. Well, obviously.
Yeah, we don't have the Queen or, Camilla on everything, but, we have, but, yeah, it's, like I said, it's just the man cannot stop lying.
Mm-hmm.
He has one gear, and that is lie all the time. Here we go with the next one.
Michelle Obama, tons of covers, but never any for Melania Trump.
Bullshit. Paris Weekly.
Xavier, you and I have been in communication, and I know that we're coming down, and I want to continue this conversation. And I do want to actually translate your work into English so that people can find it in America and read it. Because if we had a world that was not being run by satanic pedophiles, you would have won a Pulitzer. You would be not having to run away for anti-Semitism pertaining to a piece 3 years ago, but you would have been awarded a Pulitzer for this incredible investigation that you've brought to the public sphere. So where can my audience follow your work?
Okay, I am not saying that it hasn't happened before, but an anti-Semitic asshole being awarded a Pulitzer for a story made up by a non-journalist with zero proof that was published and received such a fierce backlash that the publisher moved away to a whole ass other country, that would be a sight. Because Joseph Pulitzer, while far from perfect, was a Jewish son of Hungarian immigrants that was a major force for journalism, both good and questionable, but mostly good. Fucking ridiculous to put them in the same sentence.
God.
But that's Candace for you. Last clip.
Here at Fates et Documents, we are translating our work into an English book for the American public because there is so much information that only French speakers have, as well as updating the case on our website. Stay tuned on September 12th because we have a process for this investigation and flipping it around on the media.
Amazing. Well, Xavier, thank you so much for joining us today. I will definitely point my everyone that's listening to this. It's an incredible story, and the cover-up is even more incredible. And we are just so blessed that we have independent media people who are really willing to risk their lives and their freedom to get out the truth to the public. So don't just get invested in this case. Share it with people. We need everyone in the world to realize that what we have going on is something that is so sinister. It is beyond comprehension, and yet it is real. Xavier, thank you so much for joining us.
Okay, that was the last clip. So I doubt anyone recalls at this point, but September 12th is when Natasha Ray is supposed to be tried for her very obvious libel case. It won't silence the bullshit artists, but it'll give the sideline people something to chew on. In short, this dude sucks, and I hope justice finds him in whatever form he ultimately deserves. Let's drink something dumb.
All right. That being said, well, I'll get to what I looked up after we pour these up.
Okay.
State Fair soda cotton candy is today's drink of choice.
Huh. Isn't that another Blue Sun?
Yep. Blue Sun Bottling Co. at Spring Lake, Minnesota.
Yep.
I'm just looking for...
That has to have Red 40 in it.
Oh, yeah. It's got Red 40 in it. No doubt about that. Carbonated water, sugar, natural and artificial flavor. No shit, there's artificial flavors in it.
I mean, it's cotton candy soda.
Yeah.
Fuck me, where's the opener?
That's a phenomenal question.
Jesus, dude.
It should be where it always is. Which is right there.
Yeah. This is good pod. Good pod right here.
Yeah.
Oh, I found it.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah, because I was messing around with rubbing alcohol in a lighter the other day.
You can stop there.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear more.
I just wanted to see how well it would burn and if it would leave a mark on the metal or not. Oddly enough, it crawled up out of the metal basin and started to roll out onto my desk. So,
like I said, you can stop. You can just plausible deniability. All right. There's a little bit of that.
Yep.
Okay. Oh.
I don't know if I like the L of that.
It's smells like a strawberry cotton candy.
Yeah.
Let's give it a shot. Oh my god, that is thick.
That's
a thick flavor. They nailed it.
Oh yeah, they got
Good
it down
Lord.
on that. Oh,
it's that taste right after like the cotton candy has gotten in your mouth, and it has sucked the moisture
from your
and it's chewy.
Yeah, and it's
right before it starts breaking down. It's that moment of chewiness.
Oh, man. This reminds me of all the reasons why I don't like cotton candy.
Right?
Oh, boy.
Wow.
Oh, which reminds me. I mentioned
it has the
beginning,
effervescentness of it, too.
Yeah.
They really nailed it. I mean, I'm not a fan, but I'll drink yours if you can't finish it off. I need the sugar boost because I got to put this up to Patreon and all that shit.
I probably will. But no, the what was it? All right.
Yeah.
State Fair.
Okay.
Mentioned it at the beginning.
Yeah.
I went with a friend, and we did the usual walk around, right?
Right.
Well, something that everybody always goes on about at all the jobs I've had is, oh, you got to get Sweet Martha's cookies when you go.
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
I've heard that. Yeah.
Me and my friend were like, okay, we have the money. Obviously, we should do it. So we went.
Yeah.
Well, the person I went with has been going to the state fair for years.
Yeah.
Lives here, so of course.
Right.
And they're sitting there and they're like, yeah, so something
I
I
met a
need to...
dude the other day, just real quick. I met a dude the other day that said he has lived here for 30 years. He was older than me. He moved here when he was in his 20s or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
He said he's lived here for 30 years, has never been to the fair. And I'm just like, dude, I acclimated right the fuck away.
Yeah.
I can't stand dill pickles. I don't get the local obsession. But that's it. Otherwise, I'm here. I'm in it. Mm-hmm. I absorbed, you know? But yeah, go on.
They were sitting there and they go, okay, look, here's the thing. I've gotten them before, and they're all right.
Yeah.
My mom has a better recipe for them.
Yeah.
But if you are serious about getting them, you should know that they come in a range of sizes, and they were telling me all the sizes that you could get on our way there. And they're like, but here's the thing. It's $9 for a cup. And I was like, okay, that's a little expensive, but it's fair food, whatever.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you don't understand. What they do is they overfill everything to, you know, make it worth your money.
Yeah.
And I'd seen people walking by with, like, the buckets, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, yeah, they overfill it.
Yeah.
And they were sitting there and they're like, no, you don't understand. They give you a cup and they overfill it by at least ×2.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. And then we got up there and I watched somebody walk by with the cup, and it looks like, obviously it looks better than it, but it's like the size of those red Solo cups.
Yeah.
But like, y'all can't see it, but it's basically one of those red Solo cups with another red Solo cup on top of it. And I'm like, okay. Does it come with a lid that we can, like, you know, seal it with?
Yeah.
And they're like, honestly, you're going to have to be able to pack away about 15 cookies.
Yeah.
And I was standing there and I'm like, we just ate a bag of mini donuts and I already feel sugar overloaded. I wanted to get the cookies to bring home.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I can't pack away 12 cookies.
Yeah.
You're not packing away 12 cookies. So I was like, no.
Yeah.
How about we just keep our money and get fried olives instead? And I was like, all right. I know you don't like olives, but fried olives...
Did you try them?
Yes.
Okay.
They were actually pretty decent.
I'll take your word for that.
I won't go out of my way to spend my own money on it, but my friends spent their money, so I was comfortable with trying it.
Did you ever have the deep fried Oreos?
No.
It's like kissing the devil. It's so good.
I didn't...
It's why we don't have a deep fryer. That's why. Because I will make them bitches.
Actually, I think I have a...
And I will go... Now see, I will go a step further. Because I know how to get duck fat here that's been rendered. You can't finish it off.
I can't.
I will.
No.
I will. It's really strong. That's easily one of their best creations.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah.
So, right.
Yeah,
the
what
engineering
else?
thing.
Yeah, what about that? Yeah. Statistical engineering, was that it? Did you look that up?
Yes, statistical engineering. And what it ended up getting broken down to was engineering's... God, I bit my own tongue right as I started to talk. Okay.
I bit mine real bad a couple weeks ago. I'm still dealing with that. Yes. Anyway.
Engineering statistics is a field that combines engineering and statistics, no shit, to analyze data. It uses techniques like probability theory, regression analysis, and descriptive statistics
Okay.
to interpret data, make predictions, and inform engineering decisions. So basically,
Okay.
they sit back, they look at all of the statistics of something and then relay back to the engineers of, yeah, maybe don't build this there,
Right.
is the basics of what I'm getting from that.
Okay.
But, that's all. Didn't get Sweet Martha's. Love Minnesota, but I don't love it enough to put myself into a sugar coma.
Right. Oy. All right. Well, that will be it for this week. Oh my God. Please consider supporting us on Patreon if you like this show. Patrons get access several days early to the full run of a show, whereas everyone else gets it broken up Monday through Friday and then compiled on Saturday. As we've been doing that, I've seen the listener numbers, or the amount of people listening to a show, shoot up, including on the weekends. So, I feel good about that. Everyone seems to like it because I haven't gotten any emails calling me a douchebag yet. I'm not one of, well, yeah, and you know what? I'm not one of those people who goes, oh, people don't like this, I must be doing something right. No, I accept feedback.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons we considered doing the broken up episodes. Was that somebody said, hey, why don't you do shorter episodes or maybe break them up? And I was like, well, I was already kind of thinking about that, but sure. So, at any rate, if you want to contribute to the show, you can go to patreon.com/GishGallupGirl, and you actually can get this show for $1 a month.
Yeah.
If you want to give us more money, totally cool. There's tiers for that. But yeah, seriously, $1 a month, you can get the show. You can get our MP3s, any other things that I feel like putting up there as downloads. They're for the patrons. That's whatever. I appreciate it. That's... and if you want to follow us over on Mastodon, I am there. My Mastodon is not connected to Threads. So if you have Facebook Threads, you're not going to get this show.
Or Instagram Threads, I'm assuming as well.
I don't know about that.
Okay.
All I know is that I blacklisted all of Threads.
All right. See,
I don't see
Threads,
content, and Threads doesn't see our content. Yes.
Well, for Threads, the only place that I've seen it has been on Instagram.
Yeah. Well, I've only ever seen it as Facebook.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only reason why I have a Threads account is because as I was scrolling through my Instagram, I'd see the Threads pop up as like how they would shorts on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it was a bunch of hot goth women. So
there you go.
I was like, oh, fuck it. Yeah, I'll link my accounts. Why not?
Right. Yeah. No. I love Mastodon. No complaints.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's all that I can think of. I'm going to try working on the website a little bit every day, just something, because I've really let that slack. Because, like this episode, I spent like 3 days going through that 40-minute episode.
Yeah.
With that asshole.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was just like, well, that's a lie, and I'd look at the clip and go, fuck me, 10 seconds. Fuck, 15 seconds. Usually I'll try to let these things go like 2, 3, sometimes 5 to 7 minutes.
Yeah.
But for this one, it was just like, fuck, I gotta look that up.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'd hear him talk again and go, fuck, I gotta look that up.
Like when you started reading Blackout initially.
Yeah. Yeah. And, there's some things that we get to skip because she's just said it 1,000 times and it's in service. We don't necessarily skip it every time, but we'll play the clip just to get to the part where there's a new thing. And then, I get to cut away and go, actually, no.
Yeah.
All that other shit, no. But also this, hell no. But, so I guess that's it for this week. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and I wish you all the best. Have a great weekend.
Yep. Have a good weekend. Ciao.